No CP. At night, as she passed by, she looked at the reflection on the water and was very puzzled. Why did she transform from a Chinese person with yellow skin and black straight hair to a mixed-race person with silver and curly hair? In the stories of China mentioned by my companions in the past, there is no such appearance, right? Walking through the streets and alleys, watching the strange gazes of passersby, listening to the strange voices of young children, Yuan expressed that he wanted to sprinkle water. These were just common meals before crossing the river, and he had already gotten used to them. However, she didn't expect that besides giving her an extra chance to come through time travel, there would also be benefits. Her taste and color senses, seeing colors, had actually appeared. Looking at this entrance-less wall, it's really beautiful. Crack, take a bite of the red apple, wow, sweet and juicy experience you've never had before. That yellow and hard pancake was also delicious. I ate wheat and corn all at once, and the experience I had never experienced before put me in the honey pot of happiness after entering the cultivation world. Lingbai is so fragrant that it even has various colors. The swine meat is so tender. Is that a spirit chicken? It should be delicious to make fried chicken with it. Other chi refining cultivators. Run. The foundation building spirit python is here. Chi refining repair in the late. Spirit python. Wait for me, I've decided, I'll have grilled snake meat and snake soup tonight. So, fighting and eating all the way opened up a unique path of cultivating immortality in the evening. This book is also known as Alien. Keywords of the novel. I became immortal through eating and eating without any pop-ups. I became immortal through eating and eating. Download the complete text. I became immortal through eating and eating. Read the latest chapter on how to become immortal through eating and eating. 1. Chapter 1 Crossing, Revised. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Crossing, Revised. Late at night, after completing the task and returning, I need to make some dishes from that ancient book. A clear and lively voice came from Yuan's earphones. Yuan smiled helplessly and said, "Are you sure I'll let someone who can't taste it do it?" Without waiting for a moment, the other end of the earphone continued to say, "Isn't it true that your Chinese people have cooking genes in their bloodline? Besides, this is a collection of ancient Chinese cuisine that I finally managed to find. Why don't you give it a try?" Wan. As soon as the woman's voice fell, a flawless female voice came from both of their headphones. Alarm alert, approaching the cosmic tomb group, please keep an eye out for abnormal energy fluctuations. The voice disappeared, and Yuan's face became serious as he focused on piloting a single-person warship towards the mission site. It's time. Come back. A ethereal and aged call rang in Wan's ear. She frowned, switched the communication channel, and asked her companion earlier, "Did you hear me?" After speaking, she realized that the warship was suddenly out of her control and charging straight towards the group of tombs. The companion had just heard Yuan's question and had not yet answered it when a burst of electric current came from his earphones. The monitoring screen in front of him was completely covered by the huge and bright flames that erupted from the tomb. After 15 minutes, the flames disappeared, and the surveillance screen only showed the universe ahead. The tomb group completely disappeared. Late. United Star 5th Fleet, numbered 13065, named in the evening, of the Huaxia ethnic group, sacrificed after controlling the warship to collide with the tomb group. United Star 5th Fleet, numbered 13065. Sacrificed. Monsters. Monster. Get up here. Why is she motionless? Won't you die, will you? Late. Run. Antimo is here. It hurts so much. It's so noisy. I heard that after interstellar beings die, they will go to heaven. I don't think I will. Go to hell, do I? In her confusion at night, she was lost in thought. She instinctively covered her ears, but there was still an ethereal female voice passing through her ears and ringing directly in her brain. "How you finally came. The sound disappeared, and a more intense pain came from her head. She fainted directly from the pain. Wan, how are you? Mo May didn't expect that she only went to the village to inquire about the immortal master's apprenticeship, and only went out in less than half an hour. Why did she end up like this at night? Sigh. Poor child, she sighed in her heart and saw that the unconscious Yuan was still losing blood from her forehead. She picked her up and ran towards the village doctor's house. Yuan had a long dream, in which she was possessed by different women, some gentle and virtuous, some chivalrous, and some domineering. There was also a person with shiny white skin, curly hair, and silver-white mixed race hair and eyebrows. They all have a common characteristic. No sense of pain, touch, smell due to being different from others. He was humiliated to death by his husband, surrounded by martial artists, designated as a demon by courtiers in the court, and died from a car split. Only this mixed-race person seems to have just been hit on the forehead by a child in the village with a stone and passed out. Yuan thought she was already dead, and these so-called dreams were just punishment from by hell for herself. Vaguely, the faint voice of conversation came from her ear again. Doctor, do you want to give Wan an injection? Why hasn't she woken up yet? Sigh. Even though she mentioned that her forehead was only scratched a little, it didn't hurt anything inside. What kind of needle did she get? Yuan furrowed her eyebrows tightly, snorted lightly, and slowly opened her eyes. Is she still not dead? At first glance was a thick piece of wood, lying horizontally in front of her. Above the wood were pieces of black-brown material. If she had read it correctly, it should be the tiles mentioned in the book. That wood should be the beam of the house. With a slight movement of her nose, she could clearly smell a medicinal smell permeating the air. It's okay, it's not a dream anymore. However, it seems that this is not an interstellar hospital either, and there is no common odor of disinfectant water. She propped herself up and looked around. Fingertips caressed the surface of the bed, feeling a slightly rough texture. She lay on a white coarse cloth bed in the corner, with a dark green gauze screen just ahead of her arm. Through the screen, it is faintly visible that there is a jujube counter not far away. Behind the counter, against the wall, there are densely stacked square drawers with copper handles. There were two people standing in front of the counter, one of whom was older and had white hair on his head. There were also spots of white on his chin beard, and he was wearing a brown-gray coarse cloth clothes. She had seen the other person in her dream, who was the aunt of the mixed race from the same village. Judging by her appearance and temperament, she should be close to 30. Her shiny black hair was wrapped in a piece of floral cloth, and she was wearing a dark red coarse cloth dress. Observing at night, I suddenly realized something was wrong. Who is she now? Is it the mixed race from that dream? Or is it too late? Why can she feel pain, smell the scent of medicine in the air? Why can she see colors? Aunt Mo. Based on her dream memory, she pulled out a dry and hoarse voice and called out, Mommy. Mo May was tugging at Yuguang's sleeve, begging him to look at Yuan again. Suddenly, she heard a hoarse call from behind the screen. She immediately let go and ran behind the screen. Late at night, how do you feel? Mo May stood by the bed and asked her with concern. Aunt Mo, it's okay now, and I don't feel any pain on my forehead anymore. Okay, that's okay. You slept for a long time and scared your aunt to death. Come on, drink some water. Mo May burst into tears of joy as she heard Yuan's hoarse voice. While speaking, she handed over the white water brought by the light and handed it to Yuan. Yuan held a bowl in both hands and started drinking with a thud. Mo May turned her head to thank Yuan. Doctor, thank you. As long as you're okay later. Don't believe me yet. Here, this bottle of golden wound medicine, sprinkle some daily on the wound in your forehead to avoid leaving any scars. Yuguang took out a small bottle and handed it to Mo May, then shook his sleeves and went to the counter. In no time, Mo May, who had thanked him again, left Yuguang's house in the evening and walked towards Mo May's house. It's almost evening outside, and the afterglow of the setting sun falls on the earthen walls of various houses in the village, even slightly dazzling. Mo May leads her in the evening, reminding her all the way. Late at night, let's go to Aunt Mo's house for dinner first. And also discuss the matter of the immortal master accepting disciples. Don't worry, late at night, recognize the immortal master as your master, and no one will dare to bully you again in the future. At the same time as Yuan was waiting for Mo May, his heart was also anticipating that when he woke up from a dream, he could see the colors. Could it be that he could also taste the taste this time? Having tasted the sweet and white water just now, Yuan in reality had more expectations for dinner: spicy rice, stir-fried pork with long beans, cold mixed lettuce. Yuan savored the delicious food she had just eaten in her heart and waved goodbye to Mo May. Aunt Mo, I have already arrived home. Please go back quickly. It's already late, please be careful of the road. Remember to close the gate of the courtyard when you enter late at night. You have to wake up early tomorrow to rush on your way, and rest early tonight. Mo May smiled at the corners of her mouth and bent her eyes as she watched Yuan nod incessantly. After giving her advice, she turned around and went back. Yuan stared at the back of Mo May's departure until it was out of sight before pushing open the courtyard door and entering. Entering the room, she lay down in a big font on the wooden bed on the left side of the room against the wall in the evening. She stared blankly at the roof, recalling everything that had happened today. She remembers when the warship she was piloting exploded directly above the tombs, engulfed by black and white flames before her eyes. When she opened her eyes again, she saw this colorful world, the call within the universe, the emotions before falling into a coma, the experiences in dreams, and finally waking up directly attached to the mixed-race sun. Yuan, everything is strange, but she was very certain that she had traveled through time and was wearing this mixed-race sun, also known as Yuan. However, according to Alice's usual time travel novel routine, she couldn't understand why she would dream of other women, each with different temperaments, personalities, and abilities. The only similarity is the three senses they also lost, including the mixed-race person I'm wearing. It's amazing that after wearing it myself, they had the second sense they didn't have before, as well as the third sense they lost. She tried to shout loudly in her heart, but there was no appearance of the original soul. As Alice said, alas, once it comes, let it be. Being able to taste the food without dying is already one's greatest luck. As for the immortal master, who knows what profession it is? Just listen to Aunt Mo and go take a look this magical world. After sighing, he cleared his mind in the evening and stopped daydreaming. Tomorrow morning, we will set off for Donglin town. It's time to go to bed. She has never been late before. Of course, she doesn't want to have this experience either, so she sipped her mouth, savoring the delicious dinner made by Uncle Yu in the evening, and fell into a deep sleep. Outside the house, insects chirped incessantly, and the moonlight was quiet. The lights were still on in the homes of eligible children in Lijia village, preparing their bags for departure. I have opened a new book on cultivating true cuisine. If you want to gain weight before reading, friends can add it to the bookshelf first. If you have a good time watching, please don't hesitate to buy your own tickets. Monthly tickets and recommended tickets are all accepted by authors. Thank you very much. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Corn Cake, Revised. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Corn Cake, Revised. The next morning, the sun was shining gently on the towering crown of the century-old locust tree at the entrance of the village. Under the still dimly lit tree, there were several children aged 7 or 8 standing sparsely, with their thin and weak bodies all carrying coarse cloth bags of varying sizes, waiting quietly. At this moment, Yuan is stepping on a stool in the yard, holding on to the edge of the vat with both hands, his head peeking into the vat, and his eyes fixed on the reflection on the water. In yesterday's dream, she only glanced at the girl when she shone on the water, so when she got up this morning, she hurriedly searched for something similar to a mirror, wanting to observe her current appearance more carefully. Finally, I found this large water tank. At this moment, the light was still relatively dim, but Yuan could still see clearly the girl with silver curly hair on the water surface. Her eyes were also wide open, and her eyes were rolling, observing Yuan on the water as well. Well, the silver curly hair, even though tied by the two strands on top of the head, is still bending into one circle after another with all its strength. The eyebrows are also silver white, the pupils are still black as usual, the nose. The bridge of the nose is higher than before, looking very straight. The skin looks much whiter than before. After confirming one by one, Yuan found that apart from the differences in eyebrows and hair compared to his previous self, overall he still looks quite similar to his childhood self, with over 90% already present. But, this hair. She fiddled with it with both hands and let go of the hairpin. Looking into the tank again, the girl in the water was also draped with curly hair, seemingly even more curly after being loosened and pulled. She bounced and bounced like a mixed-race doll. Alice must be very envious after seeing it. You and the girl in the water have 4 pairs of eyes, and their thoughts fly out of the sky. Although Alice is born with curly hair, her curly hair has no elasticity at all, and she complains to herself every time she meets her Sai. Is it an anomaly? She and the girl on the water sighed at the same time. The world seemed unfriendly to mixed race. Late, in the evening, she regained her senses and looked up at the outside of the courtyard. The upper part of the gate was a hollow railing style, and through the gap, she saw Mo May standing outside waving at her. She jumped down the steps, ran to the door, and opened it for Mo May. "Good morning, Aunt Mo, I woke up quite early today. Let's go in and Aunt Mo will comb your hair." Mo May looked at Yuan with silver curly hair and sparkling eyes. She lifted the slightly slipping bundle on her shoulder with her right hand and pulled Yuan with her left hand, entering the room together. "Put the bundle on the table, take the comb by the side of the bed, and then drag it to the outside of the courtyard in the evening." The two of them sat on chairs, one in front and one behind, while Mo May combed her hair and reminded her behind the night. "Wan, we are leaving for Donglin town at the beginning of the morning. On the way, we need to listen to Uncle Yu and follow him closely. When we arrive in Donglin town, we will behave well. Aunt Mo believes that Wan can definitely become an immortal disciple. Alright, today is another beautiful evening." After combing her hair, Mo May went into the house and put down her comb. She took out the package she had just brought and sat down to continue giving advice. Yuan also turned around, took the package, and continued to listen to Mo May. "In the evening, Donglin town is the closest and largest town to our Yujia village, but this kind of proximity is also very far from us. You also went to deliver it to Uncle Yu 10 years ago, and he said it would take more than half a month if the weather is good. So Aunt Mo prepared some dry food and 2 sets of clothes for Wan. You can change clothes for him, and we need to pay a clean visit to the immortal master. By the way, there is also a water bag inside. If you finish drinking it, you can directly contact Uncle Yu and ask him to go to the stream or river to pick it up for you. It's the first time I've left such a far door in the evening. If the road feels uncomfortable, I must come to you, Uncle Yu. Don't be afraid of trouble. If..." Mo paused for a moment, thought for a moment, and finally said, "If you don't get selected by the immortal master, don't worry or feel sad about Wan. Just come back safely with Uncle Yu. With Aunt Mo around." Aunt Mo told the village chief that no one will bully Wan again. Mo May continued speaking for a while, looked up and saw that it was getting late. She took the package from Too Late's hand and led her towards the village entrance. Yuan didn't have anything else to bring, so he followed Mo May and left home. At the entrance of the village, the sun gradually rises, and the flat lush ground is as dazzling as golden bricks. There are also many children and adults under the trees, chirping and reminding their own children to be lively. Mo May led Yuan out of a small path, looked around, and found a vacant spot to stand. The sunlight still shone on the crowd waiting under the tree, and she joined in at this time in the evening, instantly making everyone look like black charcoal. She was also illuminated like a deity, shining brightly. Why did this child come too? Heterogeneous monster. It's useless to go there. The immortal master wouldn't accept monsters like you. The chattering and talking voices around me suddenly changed direction after arriving late and began to discuss her in a low voice. Listening to the confusion of the adults around and the disgust of the children, Yuan pursed his lips and shrugged his shoulders, indicating that they were all at the level of a playhouse and could not cause any harm to himself. Exotic, why did you come too? A boy standing next to them frowned and shouted at Yuan. He moved slightly to the other side, as if he was disliking Yuan, who was standing over. Yuan turned his head and saw a boy around 8 years old speaking. He was wearing a camisole and shirtless shirt, with both the camisole and pants made of gray-black coarse fabric. His thin back was wrapped in a gray-black wrapping. If the boy's right hand is not always on his shoulder, he is likely to overlook the package of the same color as the clothes. After recalling for a moment, Yuan finally remembered that he used to be a child living next door to his original body, and in his dream, his mother would occasionally help his original body. It's just that this boy doesn't seem to like his true self. Although he hasn't bullied himself like those people, he hasn't helped out either. When Mo Mei stood over, she also heard the boy's dissatisfaction and directly asked him, "Iron Egg, where is your mother? Didn't she come out to see you off?" In an instant, Iron Egg's face became somewhat aggrieved. He pouted his mouth, but thinking that Yuan was by his side, he immediately became arrogant and straightened his small body with force. "My mother said I have grown up and am a man now, so I don't need her to give it away." "Your mother has entered the mountain again, hasn't she?" Although she was asking him, Mo Mei's tone was very affirmative. "Just now, I took Wan out and ran into your mother. She was walking in the direction of entering the mountain. Before leaving, she asked me to tell you that she didn't care about anything you did or didn't do at home in the past. Now that you're going out, you should still take care of your fellow villagers. And she made you always remember your surname Yu, who is from Yu's village. Remember this in your heart." Iron Egg couldn't help feeling anxious when he heard that his mother was about to enter the mountain again. He frowned and said to Mo Mei, "Aunt Mei, please advise my mother to tell her that Iron Egg will definitely become the disciple of the immortal. If she finds her father, please ask her not to go to the mountain for the time being." Iron Egg hesitated while standing in place, wanting to take steps back, but as soon as he thought of the promise he made to his mother before leaving, his steps became as if he had taken a root on the ground, firmly nailed to the spot. At this moment, the main road in the village heard the sound of gongs, and a tall carriage slowly drove out from the main road. In front of the carriage sat a middle-aged man with a beard, controlling 2 horses side by side to walk forward. Mo Mei squatted down and reminded Yuan a few times later, then reached out to pull Iron Egg aside and touched his head, saying, "It may take a long time for you to come back from this trip. Iron Egg, take care of your sister Yuan and don't let anyone bully her." Seeing Tai Dan's pouting disdain, she paused and continued, "Your mother is my sister's of the same family, so I will take good care of her and not let her do stupid things. But if you come back one day and your mother asks about your situation outside, you dare to tell the truth one by one with a clear conscience." When Iron Egg heard the last few sentences, he calmed down and knew his mother's temper. At this point, he no longer refuted. Mo Mei began to urge them over there and quickly said to them, "You two must support each other when you are away. Remember, no matter what happens outside, your surname will always be Yu. You are from our Yu family village and a good girl of your Mo aunt. Don't forget, do you know the way? Alright, get in the car." Yuan nodded and agreed to Mo Mei, then took a step forward and hugged her neck. Although she had only been in this world for less than a day, coupled with the time she spent with Mo Mei in her dream, she could feel the love that Mo Mei, as an elder, had for her. This kind of love was something she had never experienced before. "Don't worry, Aunt Mo. I will always remember it in my heart tonight." After finishing speaking, Mo Mei gave a kiss on the cheek and ran straight to the carriage. At this moment, Tai Dan was already standing in the back carriage, seemingly waiting for her. Iron Egg watched as the two hugged, feeling regretful that he had forgotten to hug his mother. However, he still walked towards the carriage with a proud and coquettish expression on his face. At this moment, seeing Yuan coming over, he snorted disdainfully and got on the carriage. Then he turned around and extended his right hand, saying to Yuan who was coming over, "Hurry up, little dwarf." Yuan didn't argue with him. After all, in terms of actual age, she was also the age at which she could be his mother. She directly grabbed Tai Dan's outstretched hand, got on the car, and followed Tai Dan to the side of the carriage near the window. After waking up early in the morning and not having a meal in the evening, she sat down and opened the package directly. When she saw portions of food wrapped in oiled paper inside, she took out a package, collected it, tore open the oiled paper she had taken out, and started eating. At the moment when the oil paper was torn open, an unknown aroma emerged directly and penetrated her nostrils. "It smells so good." She continued to tear, and in no time, she looked at the golden, round, and almost her face-sized shuttle-shaped pancake in her hand. With a forceful squeeze of her small hand, the pancake deformed, and when she released it, it returned to its original shape. She opened her mouth and took a big bite, cracking. The part where her front teeth came into contact was crispy, while the part where her lower teeth came into contact was soft. She chewed it carefully in the evening and observed the bottom of the pastry. With a little flip of the hand, the flat bottom of the pan-fried dough is right in front of the eye. The tip of the nose can still smell a faint burnt aroma, which is not abrupt, but adds a touch of flavor to the entire sweet pastry. Yuan happily nibbled on it one by one. Iron Egg also smelled it, and his right hand secretly touched his stomach. Although he had eaten the white meat buns made by his mother in the morning, it had been quite a while and it seemed that his stomach was already empty when he hesitated whether to have another big meat bun. The carriage started to move. Yuan, who had eaten half of the pancake in her right hand, turned around flexibly and leaned out of the window, shouting at Mo. "Goodbye, Aunt Mo," waiting for the late-night foundation building to come back. Mo looked out at Yuan, whose mouth was covered in crumbs of dough and her left arm kept waving at her. She also raised her right arm and waved it, reminding her to be safe outside. She was waiting for her in the village. Carrying a large but not heavy number of children, the 2-horsepower car left the village in less than a moment and ran towards the distance. Mo kept watching until she couldn't see the shadow of the carriage. She smiled and touched Yuan's cheek, whispering to herself, "Finally. I've left here. I hope these 2 children don't look like." Her voice abruptly stopped, shook her head, and turned back. Yuan waited until he could no longer see the village entrance and got into the carriage, continuing to pick up the dough and nibble on it. The corn cakes made by Uncle Yu are so fragrant. Seeing Yuan start eating again, Iron Egg felt like his stomach was really empty, but thinking that his mother didn't leave him many meat buns, he could only constantly hypnotize himself in his heart. He wasn't hungry, he wasn't hungry, he wasn't like Yuan's little greedy cat. After swallowing his saliva, Iron Egg snorted arrogantly and said, "It's just a jade bamboo cake. As for whether you're so happy eating it, it's different from a greedy cat." When Yuan heard Iron Egg's disgust, he didn't even give him a glance. When he didn't know he was secretly touching his stomach and swallowing saliva, she continued to gnaw happily. Her face was filled with a happy expression she had never seen before. The carriage continued to move forward, resting alternately in Shanshui and Jinyo. After 2 days, it arrived on the main road, and the surrounding carriages gathered and ran together towards the town of Donglin outside the mountains. Another place. "Senior uncle, are we still going to Donglin town this year? I heard last time that we didn't even encounter anyone with spiritual roots. This time, since I have taken on the sect mission, I have to go. It's not too far to the left or right. I heard that Donglin town is the border between our Mugu domain and the 3 holy regions, and the local customs are very different from our inland areas. It's also good to go and experience it. Elder Marshal brother, it's said that there are a lot of nice aliens coming from the building in the east of the town. It seems that one of them has golden eyes. Let's go to see how it is this year. If it is really good, maybe you can also take a look. Remember to change your clothes and not expose your sect identity when the time comes. It's getting late and we're leaving. Friends, come and get some monthly and recommended tickets to save up for her travel expenses. Remember to join the bookshelf if you like it. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Bingtanghulu. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Bingtanghulu. At night, the group would stop and rest for half an hour at noon every day, and then continue on their journey until the sun sets. Before the evening break, Yushanshui and Eugenio will move separately. Eugenio is responsible for arranging children on the carriage, while Yushanshui will place stones in the designated rest area. After observing for several days in the evening, I didn't find anything special about the stones placed. What is puzzling is that the group of people living in the dense mountains and forests have never encountered any wild animals since their departure. This is not because they hope for something to happen at night. It is natural to be safe and sound, and she is just very curious in her heart. Is it possible that this is the immortal method? Just like an interstellar stealth warship. Yuan had various speculations in her heart. Taking advantage that everyone had already eaten and drunk enough tonight, she began to rest and quietly ran to Yushanshui's side. Uncle Yu. Yuan let out a soft cry, and upon hearing the sound, Yushanshui slowly raised his slightly closed eyelids to look in the direction of the sound. Evening girl, why haven't you gone to rest yet? Did you miss Antimo? Yuan felt embarrassed and lowered his head. He grabbed the back of his head with his right hand and chuckled. I really miss Antimo. However, I came to ask Uncle Yu for some advice. Oh. Yushanshui asked a question. Uncle Yu, I see you playing with stones every night before taking a break, and I haven't seen any wild beasts attacking me all night. Uncle Yu, is this some kind of immortal technique? Yuan exclaimed in one breath. Yushanshui was a bit surprised in his heart. He didn't expect Yuan to observe so carefully that the other children in the same group didn't notice, so he took it for granted. His face softened slightly, the corners of his lips slightly raised, and his voice carried a hint of relief. Miss Wan, what I'm using is just the common lost hub formation in the mortal world, far from reaching the level of a fairy. This small formation can only confuse ordinary beasts. Upon hearing this, Yuan became even more curious. Could just a few stones be enough to confuse the beasts? It's also too unscientific. She directly expressed her own question. Yushanshui sensed her suspicion but was not angry. He briefly explained the basic knowledge of gossip and the 9 palaces to her and urged her to go back and rest as soon as possible. Every night thereafter, Yuan would come over to continue seeking advice from Yushanshui after everyone had rested. On the 3rd night, Tai Dan noticed a murmuring sound nearby and stood up to check. He found a large and small figure, realizing that Yuan was actually studying. He quickly got up and crowded beside him, listening to it with her. After the carriage continued to run forward for more than 10 days, everyone finally left the mountains and arrived at the vast plain. They finally entered the Mugu domain. At this moment in the evening, Yu was lying by the window of the carriage, nibbling on corn tortillas while enjoying the scenery of the plain. On both sides of the dirt road that the carriage was walking on, there were golden wheat waves. The gentle breeze blew by, and the golden wheat waves rose and fell, high and low, creating a spectacular sight on the highlands far away from the wheat waves. Scattered jujube red wooden cottages are dotted. At this time, it is approaching the season of winter wheat maturity, and there are figures as big as ants in front of those houses, coming and going for some colors that he had not yet seen. Yuan pointed at Iron Egg one by one, and although Iron Egg's expression was disdainful, he patiently answered them one by one. The two of them squeezed together by the window on one side, asking and answering one by one. As noon approached, Yushanshui, who was sitting in front of the car, could already see the city wall ahead. He swung his whip hard, urging the 2 horses to run faster. Ji-wen. The attendant at the city gate reminded the 2 people in front of the car. Yushanshui quickly took out the 4-sided document given by the village chief from his pocket. The messenger took it and handed it back, reminding them not to forget. The immortal masters of the 9 Heavens Pavilion just arrived a few days ago, and they are expected to depart this evening. You can hurry up and take a test. Yu Shanshui and Eugenio quickly clasped their fists to express their gratitude. After greeting the immortal master about the location of his apprenticeship, they drove into the city gate without hesitation and went directly to Wenxian Square. The place where the immortal master of Jiutian Pavilion was taking his apprenticeship. Although there are still half a day left until the end of the Nine Heavens Pavilion's apprenticeship, the children queuing up on the Wenxian Square still stacked several rows after Yu Shanshui and his companions arrived by car. They followed the instructions and parked the carriage. Then, they gave a few reminders to the children in the carriage and asked them to get off one by one. Eugenio led them to the end of the queue. Yuan and Tai Dan were the last to get off the bus. They nodded towards Yu Shanshui and followed behind the team, reaching the end of the line. Iron Egg originally intended to stand behind Wan, but as she continued to crawl behind her, she immediately ignored her and let out a soft snort. She looked up straight and took a step forward, following the line ahead. Yuan stood at the end, looking around the square. The waiting line for the immortal master to recruit disciples is still very long, mostly children aged 6.9, occasionally meeting one or two around 12, standing abruptly in the line. Every night on the way, in addition to learning the basic mysteries and gossip, I also learned about some immortal master's apprenticeship from Yu Shanshui in the evening. I heard that the first thing an immortal master needs to do when recruiting disciples is to test their spiritual roots. If there are spiritual roots, the immortal master will register them and take them to the immortal gate. As for the future, Yu Shanshui said he is not aware of it, and he has only been there once. Last time, there were no spiritual roots in the entire Donglin town, and the expressions on the faces of those immortal masters were not very attractive. As for the situation this time, no one can guarantee it, but there is always a voice in Yuan's heart telling her that she will definitely have. As for whether it is really what she wants, she will soon know. The sun gradually moved down, and the children queuing in the square were not as hot anymore, but their hearts became increasingly restless. After testing all afternoon, not a single one had spiritual roots. They could clearly see that the immortal masters on stage were becoming more and more impatient, watching them walk down the stage one by one with their heads down. They couldn't help but feel uneasy as they were still queuing. In no time, it was the turn of the children from Yujia village to take the stage. The two of them, Yu Shanshui, who were waiting outside the square, couldn't help but grip their hands, hold their breath, and stare at the movements on the stage. No, still not. Is it possible that this year? When Yu Shanshui lowered his head and a hint of regret and unwillingness flashed through his heart, the voice of the immortal master suddenly came from the stage. Single golden spirit root, root value 90. Yu Shanshui suddenly looked up and saw Iron Egg, the child of his wife's sister, standing on the stage. He watched as Iron Egg was led to one side of the stage by the smiling immortal master, and then went on stage in the evening. Che, it's actually an anomaly. On the stage, a young man wearing a moon-white robe with dark green stripes on his sleeves sneered when he saw you with a head of silver curly hair coming at night. Then he extended his finger to Yuan on the stage and said, "You, go down. Our 9 heavenly pavilion never accepts any anomalies." Everyone in the audience heard the young man's sneer and the words behind him, which also raised concerns in Yu Shanshui's heart. On stage, Yuan not only heard, but also saw the disdainful expression on the young man's face clearly. Although she couldn't understand why even the mouths of the immortals in the immortal sect were strange, she still straightened her back and clasped her fists, saying to the 3 immortals on stage, "3 immortals, although I couldn't understand why the immortals also called me strange, shouldn't everyone be equal when accepting disciples? If I missed someone with good qualifications, wouldn't the immortals regret it?" After asking 2 questions in a row, the young man observed Yuan again and saw that she was so hydrated and fair-skinned at a young age. Looking at her curled hair, he couldn't help but think that she would also be a wonderful person in a few years. With this in mind, the young man spoke up and said, "So, you're right. But our sect does have regulations that prohibit outsiders like you from entering. So, if you really want to, you can follow me. As my maid, the sect won't manage it. When Yuan heard the young man say this, he couldn't help but know what the maidservants he was talking about were for. While feeling contemptuous, he was also worried about how to refuse without affecting himself and the people in Yu's village. After all, the other party was an immortal master, and the means were definitely extraordinary at this moment. Another young man on stage who had never spoken spoke up. He stood on stage with a cold face and had never spoken before. Even when Iron Egg was discovered, Shan Jinlingen only smiled faintly. Now, when he spoke up, he surprised the audience and looked at the cold young man. Xiao Yu, don't act recklessly. The cold-faced young man paused, looked at Yuan, and continued, according to the rules of the Nine Heavens Pavilion, those who are not of our race are not allowed to join the sect. Since you are an outsider, you should know that you are different from the people present. It is your fate not to enter the sect. Next. After speaking, the cold-faced man regained his original appearance, and the young man named Xiao Yu no longer felt too late to let another companion drive her down. He took the recorded Jade slip and began to register the qualifications of the next one. Yuan was kicked off the stage like this, and she did not lower her head like other unselected children. After finding the location of Yu Shanshui and others, she ran over directly. Uncle Yu. Miss Wan, don't be sad. There will be other immortal sects coming in a few days, don't worry. There will always be a chance. Yu Shanshui reached out and touched Yuan's head, comforting her. Without further explanation, Yuan nodded lightly and stood beside Yu Shanshui. After a moment, there were no more people queuing up below the stage. The young man on stage handed the jade slip in his hand to another companion, who took it and placed it in his forehead for a moment. Then, a white paper flew in front of him. In no time, when he started writing, a column of black letters appeared on the paper. Everyone in the square exclaimed in surprise upon seeing this and knelt down on the stage in order not to appear abrupt. Yuan had no choice but to kneel down with everyone, her hands and head pressed against the ground bricks. Then she lifted her head slightly and glanced at the stage with a slanted eye. The immortal took the jade slip away from his forehead, and there was no more white paper in front of him. With a wave of his right hand, he wrote a column of black white paper and flew directly to the direction of the town supervisor of the county in the east. Then I saw the cold-faced young man waving his hand, and a huge treasure boat appeared above the square. He flew up with an iron egg, and the other two also lightly jumped onto the treasure boat. Then a spiritual light flashed by, and the treasure ship rushed towards the clouds, disappearing into the sky. Nearby white clouds were marked with traces that had not dissipated for a long time. At this time, the supervisor of the county also raised his head, motioned for the document beside him to take down the white paper hanging in front of him, and then heard the document yell loudly. The head of the town or village who got the fairy fate came to the yamen to report. Remember to go to the yamen to get the reward. After saying that, they left with the supervisor of the county, and the crowd on the square soon dispersed. Evening girl, don't be discouraged. Let's go. Uncle Yu will buy you Bingtanghulu. Yu Shanshui touched her head at night, took her little hand, and walked outside. Yu Jinyo and the other children drove to the inn where they would stay every time they came. Come on, evening maid. In the evening, she reached out to pick up the tomatoes on sticks handed by the mountains and rivers. She looked at the red fruits strung on the wooden stick in her hand, which seemed to be covered with ice crystals. In the sunset, as she turned the stick, different colors changed. At night, he opened his small mouth and took a bite of ice crystals and a small piece of red fruit flesh. So sweet, wow, it's so sour. The sweetness of ice crystal and the acidity of red fruit blossomed in the mouth at night. The sour taste stimulated her to salivate constantly. At night, she bit the tomatoes on sticks in her hand, and immersed herself in the sweet and sour world. Seeing her eating so attentively, Yu Shanshui interrupted cruelly, "All right, I didn't even have lunch. I'll wait until I finish my meal when I go back, otherwise I'll be careful not to have a stomach ache from hawthorn acid." After finishing speaking, they grabbed Yuan's other hand and went to the inn together. Xiaoyu, do you remember what I told you before coming here? How dare I say such things directly in front of everyone? Now, I will immediately reflect on it in seclusion. Think about how to explain to my master after returning to the sect. After the treasure ship flew away, an immortal teacher led Iron Egg to the room inside the cabin and explained some basic information about the sect to him. The cold-faced young man also began to scold the man who was too late. The man named Xiaoyu felt that his senior brother was too alarmed in his heart, but in order not to make himself worse, he had to stand there with low eyebrows and obedient eyes, listening obediently. After seeing my senior brother finish speaking, I clenched my fists and went straight back to my room in the cabin to activate the formation. The cold-faced man let out a light sigh, then suddenly stood up and looked ahead at the treasure ship. In no time, another golden jade treasure ship sailed towards each other. The cold-faced man opened the treasure ship defense array and clenched his fists at the approaching Jinyu treasure ship, saying, "There are fellow disciples of the Four Extremes sect ahead. I am the eldest disciple of Master Shiwen of the Nine Heavens Pavilion, Long Ying. I wonder which Taoist friend came to the mortal realm to recruit disciples this time. The Four Extremes sect, Lingyue." The formation of the Golden Jade treasure ship has not been activated, only a cold female voice can be heard. Long Ying didn't get angry when he saw the other party like this, so he continued to clench his fists and say, "It turns out to be Lingyue Immortal. Long has been admiring him for a long time. I don't know if Immortal wants to go to Donglin town to recruit disciples. We have just come out of this town, and we have only received one disciple of Danjin Lingzhen on this trip. If Immortal wants to go, perhaps he will come back in vain. It's okay." After finishing speaking, the Golden Jade treasure ship accelerated its speed and flew over from the side of the treasure ship. Long Ying waved his hand and activated the formation, his face not rising, but under the cover of his sleeves, his hands had already clenched their fists, trembling slightly. In the evening, the Golden Jade treasure ship of the Four Extremes sect has quietly stopped over the Ascension Square, waiting for the dawn of tomorrow. Yuan was already lying on the bed, listening to the chirping of the little girls around her, and soon fell asleep in search of delicious food. Bingtanghulu, sweet, here's a monthly pass, it's delicious. Join the bookshelf, double the sweetness. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Dried Sweet Potato. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Dried Sweet Potato. The next morning, after a good night's sleep, I stretched lazily and got up to take out a set of light blue gauze dresses prepared by Mo Mei and put them on. After she walked to the lobby of the inn, she saw that Yu Shanshui and Yu Jinyo were already sitting on a square table in front of the hall, each occupying a table, with several male and female children from Yujia village sitting around each table. Yu Shanshui saw her coming out late and waved to invite her over. It wasn't even as late as sitting down. He excitedly said to Wan, "Miss Wan, after finishing breakfast, we'll go to the square with Uncle. The immortal masters of the Four Extremities sect have arrived last night, and will start accepting apprentices at midnight today. Later, we'll go early and queue up for a spot in front." At this moment, Yuan had already sat down, his eyes curved and he smiled at the scenery. "Listen to Uncle Yu." After sitting and waiting for a moment, the remaining children also arrived. Yu Shanshui saw everyone and notified the immortal master to accept the disciple later. He then asked the waiter to bring breakfast. After a while, the waiter in the inn delivered 2 large plates of white mantou and 4 dishes. After they were all served, she stared at the 4 dishes curiously in the evening. Seeing that Shanshui began to move her chopsticks, she leaned forward and extended her left hand. She took a big mantou with soft and white color. One mantou was half her face. She held the bottom of mantou in her small hand, opened her mouth and took a big bite. So fragrant, my mouth and nose are filled with the fragrance of wheat. Although there is no pork stuffing with explosive juice like the white flour bun made by Iron Egg Mother, some sweet mantou are also delicious. She took 2 or 3 bites, chewing while picking up chopsticks with her right hand and picking up a small dish close to herself. She first observed that there was a square white cube at the end of the dark red chopsticks, and the light outside the window filtered in, making the white edges appear somewhat transparent. Put it directly in your mouth. It's sour and sweet. It adds some ups and downs to the monotonous white mantou, and then bite it with your back teeth. Click. The crisp taste, combined with a refreshing sour and sweet taste, instantly stimulates the body and mind that have been sleeping for a night but have not fully woken up. Click. In the evening, he ate 2 more bites, and then he took another bite of white mantou held in his left hand. His mouth kept chewing, his cheeks slightly bulging, his eyes fixed on a plate of bright red vegetables on the left side in front of him, and his right hand chopsticks went straight up. Ka zheng zheng. There was a slightly dull sound, and I chewed the big mantou directly in the evening. After a few bites, I stopped and ate some sweet and sour white dishes again. During this time, she kept making a hissing sound on her lips, realizing that she had been spiced by that small dish. Yu Shanshui noticed the commotion in the evening and chuckled lightly. He poured her a cup of cooled tea and placed it in front of her. This is spicy pickled vegetables, isn't it spicy enough? Come on, drink some herbal tea to relieve the spiciness, and you can also eat more pickled and crispy radishes. In the evening, you put down his chopsticks and picked up a teacup to gulp it down until he drank half a cup before finally calming down. Then she picked up her chopsticks and wandered between the pickled white radish and the spicy mustard tuber, occasionally biting a mouthful of white mantou or sucking a mouthful of tea. After a while, Yuan, who had eaten and drunk enough, followed behind the mountains and waters and walked towards the direction of the Ascension Square. Yuan savored every meal of delicious food since arriving in this world, and compared it to the nutrient solution she had been drinking before traveling. Although Yuan, who couldn't taste it at the time, didn't know how unpleasant Alice's taste was, she must have known that these solid foods could suit the heart and stomach more than nutrient solutions. Looking down at the dimples on the backs of her hands, she didn't expect to gain so much weight. She remembered that in those first few days, she was only skin and bones. Taking a comfortable breath, I watched the bustling vendors around me and quickly walked to the Ascension Square in the evening. Alright, go ahead and queue up. After Yu Shanshui finished speaking, the children following him quickly ran to the end of the queue. In the evening, they looked up and nodded at Yu Shanshui, and also ran over. At this time, although they arrived early, there were still 2 rows on the square, and in the evening, they followed behind and stood in the 3rd row. In no time, Eugenio also arrived, and a few children from Yujia village quickly stood behind Yuan. They chattered and looked at the stage in the evening, feeling bored. About half an hour later, the square was once again filled with children who came to test, some who were unwilling to accept yesterday's defeat, and others who had just arrived last night, and this morning the entire square was bustling with noise, and the sunlight shone on the queue of people without any cover. In the evening, they lowered their heads to avoid the sunlight. After another moment, the square fell silent for an instant. In the evening, I looked up and squinted at the high platform, only to see 3 immortal masters wearing light ivory yellow robes standing above. One of the female immortals had her hair shining red in the sunlight, like a blazing flame. She stood behind the other 2 immortals, her face cold, and without saying a word, she walked straight to one corner. The sunlight didn't want to chase her, and her hair turned dark. We are disciples of the 4 Extremes sect. The qualification test lasts for 3 days, starting at the hour of the hour of the hour of the hour and ending at the hour of 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 the hour. A male immortal in front of the stage spoke, while the female immortal on the other side waved her hand. A huge fan-shaped white jade appeared in the center of the stage. The first one to go up was a 12-year-old boy, whom Yuan remembered. He also tested him yesterday afternoon, but unfortunately did not have a spiritual root. I don't know how the result was this time. After the young man took the stage, he followed the guidance of the fairy teacher and placed his hand on a hemispherical protrusion in the center of the jade. For a long time, the jade did not show any reaction. No spiritual roots, next one. The male immortal held a jade slip in his hand and was ready to record at any time. At this moment, seeing no response, he directly said it. The young man was unwilling and continued to place his hand there. After a few breaths, he reluctantly lowered his head and walked down the stairs on the other side, feeling lost and entering the crowd. The several boys around 7 years old who went up one after another also had no spiritual roots. The three immortal masters seemed to be very clear, their faces were very calm, without any signs of loss or impatience. At this moment, an 8-year-old girl wearing a willow yellow gauze skirt stepped onto the stage and walked to the jade stones. In the evening, she could see her slightly disheveled hair bun, and there were many wrinkles on her dress. It was speculated that she had only arrived in Donglin town this morning without resting and came directly. The girl placed her hand on the protrusion of the jade, and in an instant, a raging fire occupied the entire fan of the white jade. The onlookers in the square saw it and were worried that the flames would melt the jade. Single fire spirit root value 99. After the male immortal finished speaking, he placed the jade slip in his forehead and recorded it. The girl also had a smiling face, her eyes curved out of sight. Following the guidance of the fairy teacher, she stood not far in front of the cold fairy teacher's corner. The spiritual root test is continuing. After about half an hour, it was finally Yu's turn. She walked up the stage calmly, stopped in front of the jade, observed for a moment, and then extended her right hand, directly covering the hemispherical protrusion with her palm. Then, the ocean, forest, and flames appeared from the protrusions, and the three continued to spread, each occupying a portion of the fan among them. Wang Yang was about to reach the top of the fan, and after the forest and flames occupied more than 80% of their respective ranges, they stopped. After stabilizing, the male immortal began to record. After completing the recording, he shouted, "Water, wood, and fire 3 spirit roots. Water spirit roots have a value of 95, wood and fire spirit roots have a value of 85. Next. After withdrawing his arms in the evening and bowing to the three immortal masters, he walked to the girl at the fire spirit root. The girl smiled at her and continued to quietly watch everyone's test. Until the end of the evening, no one with a spiritual root appeared again. After the male immortal announced the continuation of tomorrow, the cold female immortal flashed back onto the treasure boat above the square, with the male immortal following closely behind. Another fairy teacher instructed that she and the girl would gather here in the afternoon the day after tomorrow and fly back to the treasure boat. The two of them stared blankly at each other in the evening, their hearts full of pride, hoping that one day they could roam the world like three immortal masters. In an instant, Yuan greeted the girl and followed her back to the inn. The girl looked around and found her own spot before leaving. The white jade in the center of the high platform stands quietly, with the surface reflecting a little starlight. Until the evening of the third day, only Yuan and the fire spirit root girl were received by the three members of the Four Extremes sect. The cold female cultivator never appeared in the next 2 days, only the young male cultivator and young female cultivator responsible for recording on the first day were testing on stage. Now that it's over, the two of them flew directly onto the deck of the treasure ship with Yuan and left. Yushanshui kept staring at the golden and jade treasure boat outside the square, watching Yuan, who had boarded the boat, wave at him by the side of the boat until it disappeared from sight. He then withdrew his gaze and turned to walk towards the inn. The two children finally successfully entered the sect, hoping that they can stick to their true intentions in the future, not forget their origin and identity, and not be like their parents. Say tomorrow, go to the government office to get the reward and go back. Mimi must have been worried for a long time, now. She can always rest assured on the treasure ship. Yuan and his companions, who had been admiring the knight by the side for a long time, also sat on the deck and introduced themselves to each other. You still look like you're only 6 years old, right? I'm 8 years old, so from now on, you can call me sister. By the way, my name is Yi Shisang. What about you, Sanji in summer? In the evening, let's take a deep breath. The night sky here. I'll call you Xia Sang. Upon hearing Yuan call herself directly, Yi Shesong puffed up her cheeks, seeming somewhat dissatisfied. Just as she was about to speak up and refute, she saw Yuan take out an oil paper bag larger than her palm from the heavy bundle behind her. The oil paper package was opened, and pieces of golden objects appeared in front of her. These golden surfaces were like willow leaves, covered with a little frost white, as if the moonlight had spilled. Yuan put the oiled paper package on the deck and handed a piece to Yi Shesong's mouth. Sweet potato slices, let's eat. Yi Shesong sniffed the faint sweetness that came into her nose, opened her small mouth, and directly bit the sweet potato slices handed over by Yuan, not forgetting to reach out her right hand to take a few more slices. The sweet potato slices were sun-dried at just the right time, and when bitten down, the surface had toughness and was very elastic, but the inside was still soft and delicate, as if freshly baked. One mouthful after another, the two of them picked up several pieces with both hands at the same time, burying their heads in the moonlight and eating one ticket on the left hand, one ticket on the right hand, chewing sweet potato in your mouth. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. 5 Blessings Cakes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 5 Blessings Cakes. The next morning, the two of them, who had eaten and slept well, sat up again and began to eat the delicious food from another oil paper bag opened in the evening. Wu Fu Bing. This cake is round, twice the size of a small hand in the evening. It has been baked golden on low heat and is covered with a lace red lucky character. It is filled with filling, and there are a total of 5 types of filling, namely red bean filling, dolphin meat filling, zucchini egg filling, black sesame sugar filling, and peanut date paste filling. According to the shop owner, each type of filling corresponds to a type of good fortune, namely happiness, wealth, nobility, longevity, and having many children. After eating these 5 types of filling cakes, you can ensure that the 5 blessings are at your doorstep and you don't worry about anything. Although Yuan didn't believe the shopkeeper's words, as a foodie, he naturally wanted to bring some of everything. In addition, Yu Shanshui reminded her that the government would give her a reward, so there was no need to worry about the silver issue. She bought it even more happily in the evening, and still received 5 yuan. Similar scenes kept happening during the 2 days waiting to leave. The two of them took a bite at the same time, expressing a sense of satisfaction. The skin of wufu cake is similar to mantu, which is made with yeast, but the difference is that the skin of wufu cake has a slightly sour taste and the smell of wheat after baking. The sweet or salty fillings inside the two are used to remove the sweetness and greasy brought by excessive fillings, while adding a unique flavor to the whole cake. The two of them took one bite at a time and quickly finished eating 5 pancakes, tasting each filling. At this moment, the fairy teacher who took them aboard also arrived on the deck. The two of them quickly wiped their mouths and stood up. Yuan wrapped up the remaining items and handed them to the female cultivator. He also turned around and stood beside Yi Shesong, looking up and straight at the female cultivator. The female cultivator received the oil paper packet that was handed over too late and placed it in a storage bag, beginning to explain the basic knowledge of the cultivation world to the two of them. The place where they will go in the evening is the 4 Extreme sect, one of the 4 major cultivation sects in the Mugu domain. The remaining 3 sects are Southeast Taibai sect, Northeast Xiaoyao Tower, and Northwest Jiutian Pavilion. Besides, the rest are all small sects, affiliated with various major sects. Upon hearing this, Yuan thought that Iron Egg was taken by the 9 Heavens Pavilion. Knowing that the two were still in the same domain, he believed they would have another chance to meet in the future. After speaking about the sect, the nun introduced them to the relevant knowledge of cultivation. To cultivate immortality, ordinary people must have spiritual roots. Among them, the number of spiritual roots determines how far a cultivator can go. Generally speaking, the fewer spiritual roots a cultivator has and the higher their spiritual root value, the more likely they are to inquire about the immortal path and ascend to the immortal realm. The highest cultivation level on the interface we are in is to transform the spirit. By breaking through the 9 thunder calamities, you can ascend to the upper realm. After entering the realm, you need to first introduce qi into your body and enter the qi refining phase. Then, you can build a foundation, form pills, and transform babies. Every breakthrough in a major level is exceptionally steep, with only the initial refining period experiencing deviations in progress due to differences in your spiritual roots. After finishing speaking, the female cultivator glanced at Yuan and added that the amount of spiritual roots is only one of the elements on the path of cultivation and ascension. In addition, wealth, companionship, dharma, earth, nature, including qi, are all essential. Yuan learned about the advice given to her by the nun and clasped her fists to thank her. Thank you very much, Master Xian. Upon hearing her address to herself, the nun continued to speak. After entering the path of cultivation, all common titles must be put aside, and from now on, seniority will only be based on cultivation. If I have already built a foundation now, you should call me Shizu. However, considering that you will soon introduce qi into your body, you can simply call me Shishu. My surname is Zhang. The other male cultivator is also building a foundation. Just call him Martial Uncle. As for the one you saw on the first day, she has already formed a pill and her Taoist name is Lingyue. You. Before Zhang Luiyue could finish speaking, Yi Shesang anxiously replied, we know we need to call Lingyue Shizu. Isn't it, Uncle Zhang? Zhang Luiyue nodded slightly in affirmation and immediately reminded them, it's about these contents. You can digest them on your own. It's estimated that you will arrive at the sect in 2 hours. Before entering the sect, there is also a questioning test and a divine soul test. You just need to maintain your energy. Yes, Uncle Zhang. Yuan and Yi Shesang responded with fists clasped in unison. Uncle Zhang, could you explain the heart and soul testing? Yuan continued to clench his fists and looked at Zhang Luiyue. Asking the heart is a test of your character, while soul testing is to prevent you from being taken away by others. Upon hearing the purpose of the divine soul detection in the evening, Yuan felt a bit uneasy, but still remained expressionless and clasped his fists in gratitude. Seeing that both of them understood, Zhang Luiyue nodded in satisfaction and returned to the cabin. After closing the formation, she took the 5 blessings cake that had been handed to her earlier in the evening and tasted it. The taste is really good. It's just a pity, there's no spiritual energy. Eating it in the stomach can only turn it into impurities. 2 hours later, the two of them were already fully prepared to enjoy the beautiful scenery outside by clinging to the side of the ship in the evening. Soon, a tall and magnificent mountain gate appeared in front of the treasure ship. At this moment, the 3 people who were practicing in the room also came out, and in the evening, the 2 of them bowed to them one after another. Lingyu glanced at them with only one eye, placed her hands on her chest, and charged towards the deck of the treasure ship to strike 2 spiritual spells. The speed of the treasure ship immediately slowed down and slowly landed on the flat ground in front of the mountain gate. At this point, there were already more than 20 children gathered around the flat ground, who were about the same age as Yuan. 2 young men dressed in moonlight robes looked at them. At this moment, the 2 of them saw the whereabouts of the treasure ship and walked to the front of the ship to bow. I have seen Master Lingyu, Uncle Zhang, and Uncle Martial Arts. Lingyue emerged first, and then Zhang Luiyue, holding one person in each hand, flew off the ship with Wu Yu. As she waved her right hand between her fingers, Lingyu put away the golden and precious boat and said to the 2 young disciples in white, let's start. This was the first time I heard her voice in the evening, feeling as cold and refreshing as the melting ice of a snowy mountain. After hearing the command, one disciple organized all the children to stand in line, while another took out a jade plaque and, as they walked to the mountain gate, pressed it onto a huge white jade monument next to the gate. The stone tablet flashed with colorful spiritual light, followed by the powerful 3 characters on the surface. Asking for the way to the heart. At the same time, a white light flashed at the entrance of the mountain, and a white jade step appeared that led straight to the sky. Above the jade steps, shrouded in clouds and mist, on the left is a cliff without railings, and on the right is a cliff cut with knives and axes. At this moment, Lingyu spoke again and said, from now on, climb the stairs to inquire about the heart, measure the soul in front of the mirror, and start the period of 1 day. As the words fell, the children in the queue leaned forward and backward, looking at me and me. After a moment of silence, they all ran towards the Jade steps. I don't want to squeeze at night, so I discussed with Yi Xiaosang and decided to enter later. In no time, they also lifted their feet and walked forward. She climbed more than 10 steps all the way up, but didn't notice any abnormalities in the evening. She leaned against the side of the mountain wall and continued to walk upwards. 1 step 5 steps late, here. What is this? Yuan took what Alice handed over and touched it with his fingertips, feeling it was a piece of animal skin. Just open it and you'll know. Alice frowned and looked at the other person with a malicious expression. Hua Xia. Mei. Sure. Lu. Turning to the first page in the evening, he slightly stuttered out the 5 words in the middle and then looked at Alice puzzled. This is what I finally managed to find. I heard it's a recipe passed down from the ancient times of your Huaxia star. Alice covered her red lips with one hand and lowered her head to approach Yuan's ear. After listening to Yuan, she rolled her eyes, grabbed her arm, and walked into the cabin. Let's go. Can't the nutrient solution I just drank stop your mouth? Just once. The cabin door closed, and the sound of their conversation also disappeared. Yuan, who was climbing the steps, was a bit confused. Is that all psychological test? Even if it's not going well, it should be the scene of oneself colliding with the tomb group, right? Recipe. I haven't even had a chance to see it myself yet, so I'm sure it was also burned down in the explosion. Yuan shook his head, frowned, and continued to move upwards. Monsters, monsters. Your father and mother were killed by you. The boy next to him cursed and pushed 4-year-old Yuan to the ground. Xiao Xiaowan stood up on the ground, patting the dust off her body, tears hanging from the corners of her eyes. She didn't cry because she was pushed down by a boy. To be honest, being pushed down doesn't hurt at all. However, she felt a great pain in her heart. Her mother went missing yesterday, leaving only a pool of blood in the yard. The people in the village all say they are monsters, just like their mothers know, it's not true. Iron Egg is the same as himself. I secretly saw him once before, but I don't know how he became like the villagers again. Ask him, he won't say anything. Wipe away the tears from her eyes at night, take a sniff, and run home. Sigh. After watching this scene in the evening, Yuan let out a sigh and then became puzzled. Strangely, this scene was not in his previous dream. Is this fake? I couldn't figure it out, so I had to keep moving forward at night. In the future, one day she will understand everything. The next journey went smoothly, and after reaching the summit in the evening, I walked directly to the stone mirror bordered with gold and jade not far ahead. She stood in front of the stone mirror, and after 3 breaths, waves rippled on the surface of the stone mirror. Soon, a 25-year-old wearing close-fitting armor appeared in the mirror in the evening. At night, the pupils tightened and the heart thumped and jumped loudly. I heard there is a type of mooncake, filled with 1,000-layer monthly pass and white sugar. Can friends give the author a chance to try it? End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Lingbai Rice. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Lingbai Rice. After 3 breaths, the scene in the stone mirror changed again. Close-fitting battle armor transformed into a pink and white begonia. Fairy clothes, black hair and black eyebrows faded into silver white, and the hair draped over the shoulders curled slightly, just like what I look like when I grow up late. After waiting for a few more breaths, the mirror returned to its original stone-like appearance. A square door, 2 meters high and 70 centimeters wide, opened between the right cliff. Upon seeing this, Yuan took a light breath and turned around to walk into the stone gate. Her eyes turned black, and then suddenly she became clear. She was already standing on the mountaintop square, where several people had already stood, including 2 twin girls around 10 years old and a 9-year-old boy. The square floor is neatly paved with square white marble bricks, and behind the evening is a cliff wall with the 3 characters Wangxiantai carved on it. At night, he raised his eyes and stared. After 2 breaths, he only felt a strong wind blowing out of the ravines within the 3 characters, making it impossible for him to open his eyes. He closed his eyes and left behind a line of clear tears. She raised her hand and rubbed the corners of her eyes on both sides of her nose bridge for a moment before slowing down. She opened her eyes and continued to look around, surrounded by dense forests on both sides of the mountain wall. The bamboo leaves on the left are rustling, and the golden sun is slightly rising. The forest on the right is rolling, and the faint sunlight is falling. There is a high platform directly opposite the cliff, adjacent to it. At this time, 4 immortal masters stand on the platform, 2 of whom are Zhang Luiyue and Wu Yu, and the other 2 are white-clad disciples who open the mountain gate for them. Yuan saw Wu Yu holding an oiled paper packet in his right hand hanging beside him, which was obviously the oiled paper she handed Zhang Luiyue containing the 5 blessings cake. She raised her right eyebrow lightly, bowed to the 4 people on stage, walked to the 3 people below, stood and waited. In no time, the cliff began to fluctuate again, followed by a shout of joy. "Late, that's great." As soon as Yi Shesang stepped out of the mountain wall, she saw Yuan standing below. While shouting happily, she ran to Yuan's side and grabbed her arm. "In the future, we will be classmates. I will work hard to make you call me senior sister. Yi Shesang's eyebrows and eyes were curved, and she hadn't forgotten about Yuan not calling her sister. She whispered to Yuan there. "I will also work hard and see who will become the senior sister first." Yuan's lips curled slightly, responding to her. The 2 talked in a low voice, and the twin sisters also began to talk in a low voice. The boy glanced left and right from the corner of his eyes, his lips slightly opened and closed, and then exhaled heavily between his nose. He looked straight ahead with his eyes, tried to straighten his waist, and stood there straight, like a small pine tree in the forest trying to absorb sunlight. The sun is gradually setting westward, and there are less than 10 people standing on the square. Zhang Luiyue lifted her eyes and scanned the 9 disciples below the stage. Under the sunset, Zhang's youthful face was filled with longing for the future path of immortality. Calm Wuyo, with a single wind and spiritual root, enters the inner gate of Qianyuan Peak. Zhuangzi Creek, with a single golden spiritual root, enters the inner gate of Kunyuan Peak. Yi Shesang, with a single fire spirit root, enters the outer gate to become the Peak of Wu. The remaining disciples are all unified to enter the outer gate Yuan Peak. Regardless of whether you enter the inner or outer gate, whether you have a disciple or not, you must constantly strive for self-improvement and strive for the path of immortality. If you haven't brought your energy into your body within a month, you may be demoted to a miscellaneous disciple, or directly expelled from the sect. You know. I know that I will not disappoint my senior uncle's expectations. I will strive for self-improvement and the path to immortality with courage. After Wu Yu finished speaking in one breath, he lowered his eyes and looked at the audience below. After nodding in satisfaction, he continued to speak. Kong Wuyo, Zhuangzixi, and Yi Shesang went with me to Qinggu Peak to pay their respects to the sect leader. After that, I will send you 2 into the inner gate 2 peaks. After speaking, Wu Yu flew away with Zhuang Zishi first, and Zhang Luiyue immediately followed Kong Wuyo and Yi Shesang closely behind him. The remaining disciples will go with me to Yuan Peak. After a man in white finished speaking, he waved and took out a spirit boat, calling them all to board the boat, and then left. Bamboo leaves are rustling, forests are dense. We continue to wait for the arrival of the next 10 years. Yuan and Kong Wulu, the 2 of you live at Ijio. This road leads through Gilan and a waterfall, and the first one is. Yuan took the storage bag handed over by the man in white, clasped his fists in gratitude, and turned to walk towards Kong Wuli, who was already standing by the roadside. Kong Wuyo is the sister of the twin sisters. Although she has temporarily separated from her sister Kong Wuyo, she believes she can definitely go inside to see her sister again. At this moment, she saw one walking towards her side and waved to greet her, "Sister Wan, here." Upon hearing her address to her, Yuan stumbled and felt helpless. It seemed that she couldn't shake off the fact that she was her younger sister no matter what. With a light sigh, Yu ran over in the evening and clasped his fists, saying to Kong Wooly, "Senior sister Kong." Kong Wooly looked at little Yuan with a serious expression and tried to suppress the thought of pinching her fat. He also clenched his fists and said, "Junior sister Yu. If you don't mind, it's nice for me to call you Miss Wan on weekdays." When speaking the latter half of the sentence, Kong Wooly's eyebrows and eyes curved, smiling and looking towards Yuan. Yuan's lips curled up helplessly and said, "As long as senior sister Kong is happy." "Let's go then." Kong Wulu smiled even happier, took Yuan's arm, and together they walked towards the depths of the path. At this time, it was just midsummer, and the osmanthus trees were still lush with greenery. It is likely that soon, you will be able to smell the refreshing fragrance of osmanthus walking near the waterfall. The scorching sun hung high, and the water vapor stirred up by the falling waterfall brought a hint of coolness to the two passing by. Continuing forward, before the coolness had completely dissipated, they saw a row of small houses. Walking to the first room and looking at Egeo hanging on one side of the bamboo door, Kong Wooly pushed open the bamboo door and walked in with Yuan. The small courtyard is not large, and there is a square of 8 immortal stone table on the side of the bamboo house. There is a stone bench next to each table, and not far from the stone table is a huge begonia tree, probably 100 years old at this moment, just past the spring flowering season of the Chinese flowering crabapple. A tree with green leaves has opened up a considerable shadow area for the two, and stone tables and stools are also within this area. The bamboo fence separated from the nearby courtyard, and Kong Wooly pulled Yuan into it. He sat on a stone stool and together with Yuan, they recognized the owner's storage bag. The two of them have not yet introduced air into their bodies, so they can only recognize the owner by dripping blood. Without any hesitation, Yuan bit through his index finger and dropped a drop of blood onto the storage bag. The blood fell on the surface, and after a flash of spiritual light, it disappeared directly. In the evening mind, one can sense a cubic space of 10 square meters, inside which is a wooden double-layer food box, a wooden plaque, a jade slip, and 10 stones the size of the evening palm. They are colorful and quite beautiful. Beside the stone, there was a neatly stacked moon-white robe. Yuan thought to herself, this should be the uniform attire of the outer disciples. Kong Wooly on the side was still frowning and looking at the 5 fingers of his right hand, pondering which finger was better to bite. At this moment, he saw the spiritual light on the storage bag in Yuan's hand, and his heart turned horizontal. He closed his eyes and bit through the tip of his little finger, hissing and gasping for breath. At the same time, he quickly dripped the blood from his fingertip onto the surface of the storage bag. The spiritual light flashed, and the recognition of the master was completed. Kong Wooly was immediately sucked away by the items in the bag and no longer cared about the little finger. There are 10 inferior spirit stones. What is this food box? Kong Wooly counted the items while taking out the food box. Yuan was still wondering how to take it out, and his mind was fixed on the food box when he suddenly appeared on the 8 immortal stone table. It seems that I have learned the method and tried it several times in the evening. The food box disappeared, reappeared, disappeared again, and after it finally appeared, it never disappeared again. Miss Wan, what do you have there? Kong Wuyo picked up the only bowl of Lingbai rice from his food box, opened his eyes wide, and looked at Yuan in confusion. Yuan also opened the first floor and saw a pile of white rice piled up like a small mountain valley standing alone in the middle of the food box, with no other dishes around. After taking out the rice, she opened the second layer again, only to find a piece of apricot blossom paper lying flat there, which read, Yuan Feng Ling Shan Hao, looking forward to your arrival. Yuan. This advertisement is big, afraid that the cultivators won't eat it. Yuan couldn't help but cry and laugh, and only gave a bowl of white rice, not even chopsticks. She reluctantly took out 2 pairs of chopsticks from the package and handed Kong Wooly a pair. Let's eat, and after we finish eating, we'll start practicing, she said. On the side, He also opened the second layer and looked at the words on the apricot paper in a daze. Kong Wooly took the wooden chopsticks and responded, picking up the rice. Yuan picked up a small jade bowl filled with rice and observed for a moment, but did not see any trace. His nose was close to a light smell, but there was no fragrance. Curious, she picked up a piece with the end of her chopsticks and immediately put it into her mouth while the rice grains were still stuck and not falling off. The whole entrance of the rice grains burst open, and the fine rice crumbs filled the mouth. At this time, the rice fragrance was also fully released, sweet and delicious. Before chewing, it slid directly into the stomach through the esophagus. A wave of warmth rises in the abdomen. Yuan was momentarily taken aback, his lips pressed against the edge of the bowl, and he immediately swept away like a storm, taking big bites into his mouth. The rice fragrance that I have never tasted before, with a faint hint of apricot blossom flavor, is so magical. In less than a moment, the two of them put down their dishes and let out a comfortable sigh. Half a grain of rice is missing from the bowls of the two people on the stone table, and they are eating clean and tidy. In the evening, I rubbed my warm belly through my clothes and savored the delicious taste I had just tasted. Unfortunately, it would be even better if there was just a little more chewing power. It feels like drinking a bowl of rice without satisfying your teeth at all. She roused in her heart, slowly closing her eyes, drowsy vaguely. She seemed to see dense black, green, and red light spots rushing towards her around. Not good. In the evening, she suddenly woke up Kong Wooly, who was also about to fall asleep. She took out a wooden sign and followed the previously mentioned stimulation formation, then dragged Kong Wooly into the bamboo house. Insert Kong Wooly into the room on the right side, remind him to enter the opposite room directly. Close the door, sit cross-legged on the bed, take out the jade slip, press it tightly against the forehead, and quickly look at the first 3 layers of the chi-inducing technique. In the evening, my body feels increasingly bloated, as if it's about to burst. Finally, after reading and taking note of it, Yuan placed the jade slip by the bed and guided the spiritual energy and light points to move within the meridians according to the first layer of magic formulas. Light points continuously pour in, guiding the thickest part of the light points at night, slowly moving along the meridians. The Ren meridian passes through, goes to the Du meridian, then to the limbs, and finally returns to the brain through the Du meridian. Then, the Ren meridian passes through the upper and middle Dan fields all the way, directly charging towards the lower Dan fields. Bang! Yuan felt like something was exploding inside his body, and then more spiritual energy rushed into his body, following the path he had just taken. 1 Sunday, 2 Sundays, 3 Sundays. Refining a layer of gas refining second floor refining gas in 3 layers. The speed of spiritual energy entering gradually slowed down, and it was not yet equivalent to a late breath of relief. A sigh of aging came from within the open sea of consciousness. Sigh. For hundreds of millions of years, I have finally returned. God. Only then did I realize that Kong Wuyo and Zhuangzixi had mixed up their mountain peaks, so I made some changes without affecting the subsequent content. You have 1 vote, I have 1 vote, and the gas refining will be repaired on the 9th floor. Seeking monthly and recommended tickets, please do not hesitate to buy your own tickets. Click to get up. Join the bookshelf for easy access to updates at any time. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. The Way of Eating. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. The Way of Eating. Who are you? Who are you? The two spoke together and questioned each other. In the sea of consciousness, a small milky white light ball and a huge dark black light ball occupy one side of the space, looking at each other. Nai Bai Guang Tuan looked up in the evening and cautiously looked at the black ball, which was more than 10 times his size. He spoke up, "This is my sea of knowledge, shouldn't you introduce it first?" The black ball had no reaction and remained silent in the evening, confronting it like this. After a moment, the black ball finally moved and the sound of aging slowly came out. I am Feng Shan, a person from the 9 spiritual realms. Hundreds of millions of years ago, when I crossed the space and wanted to go to the Golden Lotus realm, I was accidentally trapped by the chaos of the void and went to another void realm. It was you who brought me back to this realm. If there were faces on the milky white light ball, I believe Black Ball could directly see Yuan's tangled and incomprehensible expression. Are you sure? When did I bring you back? It was clearly. Halfway through, you stopped at night to test whether the dark shadow had really exploded with her. I am the recipe book on your body. When the explosion appeared, I felt the familiar aura of the god, so I directly branded your divine soul and returned with you. You are also a person from this domain. After speaking, the surface of the black ball was shrouded in mist, slowly shrinking. In no time, a quaint ink-black monster leather notebook appeared in the sea of consciousness, as if worried about not seeing it at night. Its edges were still affectionately emitting a light white light as the golden light flashed across the surface of the notebook. 2 golden-edged black seal scripts appeared. The Book of Food. The milky white light cluster is slightly closer, making it easier for her to see more clearly. After staring at her for a while, Yuan hesitated and said, "Is this the Book of Chinese Cuisine?" The ink-black notebook replied, "That's right. I was drawn to a lower-level interface called Earth back then, where there was no spiritual energy, only tall buildings with hands to pick stars, and 4-legged demon beasts wrapped in iron sheets. After living for a period of time, I realized that it used to be called a car. It was a very unique world without spiritual energy, but ordinary people could ascend to heaven. Although it was a bit troublesome. Later, in order to find my way back, I wandered around and tasted many delicious foods that had never appeared in this domain before. In their words, it was a design with a big imagination. Every place I walked, there were so many types of delicious food that I couldn't help but admire them. Later on, as I walked and ate along the way, I recorded them all in my culinary scriptures. This is the book. Unfortunately, although my cultivation will increase with the increase of recipes in the diet, there is no spiritual energy there after all. I waited for hundreds of millions of years, until extraterrestrial creatures attacked and the Earth star became the Huaxia star. Until Huaxia star experienced ice ages time and time again. Although I have become a demigod, I can no longer withstand the erosion of time. Helpless, I have no choice but to draw my heart's blood and a portion of my spiritual consciousness to seal them inside this food manual. Finally, hard work pays off, and I have finally arrived. Ru. It's not like speaking late. Feng Shun continued, at the moment I left my mark on you, only 2 drops of my heart's blood directly integrated into your divine soul. 1 drop was absorbed by the immortal tomb, and the other drop helped you perfectly integrate the divine soul. Now that your spirit is complete, with the blessing of your heart's blood, one day you will be able to ascend to the top of the divine path. Now that I am returning to my hometown, I have nothing else to ask for, only one thing. I hope you can help me. Upon hearing this, Yuan felt both shocked and puzzled in her heart. She asked Feng Shun, "Do you mean that I and Yuan here are the same person?" "I'm not sure, your 3 souls and 7 souls have some flaws, but in fact, they are all. I don't know why they merged so smoothly, and even completed those flaws. Will these defects manifest as some special manifestations?" Yuan asked. "Maybe there is, maybe not. Spirits and spirits are too mysterious, and I haven't fully become a god, so I don't know. I don't know what the senior said about something. If there is anything I can help, I will do my best to do it. I will soon dissipate in this realm, and now I have no worries anymore. There is only one thing that I cannot bear. I cannot bear to dissipate my food scriptures with me. So much delicious food should be preserved. Would you be willing to inherit one of my paths? The path of food." Yuan didn't expect that as a rookie who had just entered the cultivation world, she could actually come into contact with the existence of Tao. The way of food is to eat well. It really suits her heart. In less than a moment, after careful consideration, Yuan bowed to Feng Shun, but the milky white ball in the sea remained quietly there, unable to see any movement. I pay my respects to master in the evening. Feng Shun was quite pleased to hear Yuan's sincere voice and said, you don't have to worry either. You are just inheriting my way and won't affect your ability to learn from others. Besides, you are still in your childhood. If you meet the right person, naturally you should also learn from others. Yes, master. Next, I will introduce this recipe to you. The classic of food is divided into two parts, one for refining the body and the other for refining the method. Refining requires starting with the body of an immortal, so you can put it down for now. I will also set a seal and unlock the corresponding content for you under different cultivation levels. The cultivation method is not limited to cultivation, but to prevent too many delicious foods from blinding your eyes, I will also set the same seal, allowing you to taste different dishes at different cultivation levels. I divide the cultivation method into two categories. Demon beasts and spiritual plants, covering all the types I have seen before. Based on your proficiency, you can be a substitute. If there is a golden 5-pointed star in the Book of Songs, it is what I obtained on the Huaxia star. Next, Feng Shun unfolded from different perspectives, introducing the use of the food classic and the methods of cultivation to Yuan. To sum up, Yuan said, do more, eat more, and understand more. Well, not bad. She's very satisfied after explaining. Feng Shun left directly and took advantage of the limited time left to search for delicious food in other parts of the continent. After glancing at the black-skinned cookbook that no longer spoke, he withdrew from the sea of consciousness in the evening. Bang 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 bang. Just as Yuan, who had just stepped out of the sea of consciousness, was dizzy by a foul odor when she heard a fierce knocking outside the door. The bamboo door, along with the bamboo wall, slowly began to shake. She firmly grasped the stability of her breath, and by now she had reached the peak of the third level of qi cultivation. With only one chance left, she could enter the middle stage. Bang 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 bang. Ignoring the knocking at the door at night, Yuan's mind was completely immersed in a small spell attached to the jade slip. The cleansing spell. After a few breaths, a slightly astringent fingertip was played between the fingers, and the stench disappeared a bit. Continue to hit a few more, become more proficient with 10 fingers, and the stench and dirt on the body disappear completely. Bang 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 bang. She stood up and tidied up her clothes, strode over to open the door, and saw Yi Shisung with a worried expression on his face outside. Behind her stood Wu Yu and Ling Yu. I have seen Martial Uncle and Lingyue Master. Salute to the two people behind you in the evening. Yi Shesung suddenly saw the door that had been pounding for a day and a night suddenly open, still in a daze. At this moment, she heard Yuan's voice and rushed over to hug her tightly. Late, you scared me to death. You know, you haven't come out in a month. If it's any later, senior sister will break through the door. A month. Yuan was somewhat shocked. Has it been a month already? She lowered her head to touch her stomach, puzzled and without any feeling of hunger. Is it the reason for cultivation? Yi Shisang let go at night and saw her groping her stomach in a daze. She said angrily, I'm sure you won't be hungry. You and Kong Wooly just finished a bowl of immortal rice, and it's fortunate that you didn't burst your body. As she spoke, she extended her index finger and nodded at Yuan's forehead. Little girl, do you know that this was personally made by the Peak Master of Yuanyi Peak, and it was also made using the latest variety developed by Xiannong Valley. In the early days of the golden elixir, cultivators would have to refine a bowl for a week. Otherwise, Kong Wuyo could have sensed through twin sensing that her sister's condition was not right, and even if you were stretched to death, we wouldn't have been able to detect you. Where is Kong Wulu? Yuan was shocked by what Yi Shesong said and quickly asked. Yi Shesong withdrew her fingers and rolled her big white eyes. I went to the inner door and closed the door with her sister. Otherwise, Kong Wuyo's master would be helped by Yuzhenjuan. They had already been overwhelmed. Now they are closing the door and making a breakthrough. It is estimated that if they come out again, they will be ready to build a foundation. Why? Yuan was puzzled and was about to speak when he was interrupted by Wu Yu. Yu Jin said that this rice was originally meant to help you better sense the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Who would have thought that you two didn't even look at it and just ate it all? He paused for a moment, sighed, and continued, "It's my fault for forgetting to remind you. It seems that this method of helping cultivators sense spiritual energy is not advisable. I will also inform my master when I go back. Senior brother, don't blame yourself. It's not your fault." Yi Shesong closed her eyes and comforted Wu Yu when she saw his guilt. Have you ever had it before? Yuan asked them in uncertainty. This is the first time. If it weren't for Master Yuanhua of Yune Peak proposing that spiritual food is more friendly to the human body than pills, and there are no side effects yet, I wouldn't have agreed to give it a try either. But your cultivation. Ling Yu spoke at this moment, as she had never seen a cultivator who was almost stretched to death before, and her tone still had a hint of disbelief. She had just realized that Yuan had only reached the peak of the third level of qi refining, and the improvement was really minimal. At this moment, Yuan's cheeks turned red and he wished he could dive into the underground cave. Oh, late at night, isn't it okay? Come on, haven't seen you for a month, let's talk about our hearts. But first of all, I won't call you senior sister, little girl. Seeing Yuan looking embarrassed, Yi Shesong greeted her senior brothers and sisters outside the door, closed the door, and began to comfort Yuan. Seeing this, Ling Yu didn't need to ask too much. After all, who in the cultivation world doesn't have a secret? Thinking that Yuan is also an outsider, she should have some life-saving techniques like herself. The two of them let go and left directly. Ling Yu returned to the cave to continue his cultivation, while Wu Yu returned to Qing Wufeng to discuss the follow-up of this matter with his master. Qin's senior brother, have you heard about it? The two new disciples. Thank you very much, junior brother. If there are any good products next time, Qin will definitely leave a portion for junior brother first. Thank you, senior brother. If. Hey, junior brother, have you ever heard this saying? My dear brother, you should keep an eye on the matter. Qin is still busy with things, and when things arrive, I will inform junior brother. See you again. Qin Yuqing, who had just returned to the sect and received good news, sat with a golden abacus smiling and flew towards the direction of Qingwu Peak. He kept whispering to himself in the air. Another new business is coming. Are you greedy? This is also Qin's good idea. Back then, Qin also spent a lot of spiritual stones on food here. You know. The more you eat, the more spiritual stone flowers there are. If we have to go to Xinghai Tower for a few more meals then, why not? Qin will need to practice more and save time to move the spirit stone. Thinking of the scene where he would lie in the pile of top-quality spiritual stones in the future, he burst into laughter and flew to the mission hall, laughing all the way. The title of seniority is incorrect, it has been changed and will not affect the plot. Seeking monthly and recommended tickets, please do not hesitate to buy your own tickets. Click to get up. Join the bookshelf for easy access to updates at any time. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Coriander Banquet. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Coriander Banquet. After chatting with Yi Shesong at night, she regained her energy through meditation and rushed directly to the material collection area of Qing Wufeng. After leaving the courtyard and closing the formation, she took out a paper crane given by Yi Shesong. After entering the spiritual light of the mnemonic, the paper crane slowly grew larger, and finally stopped when it was twice the size of its own body. Yuan jumped onto the flat back of the paper crane, grabbed the spiritual formula with one hand, and controlled it to shake and soar into the air, flying in the direction that Yi Shesong said. At the beginning, Yuan was not proficient in controlling it, and the paper crane flew up and down in the air, causing the cultivators passing by to worry that it might suddenly fall. It was also difficult for Yuan to manipulate with spiritual power, with his left hand tightly grasping the neck of the paper crane and his right hand maintaining the finger formula. The paper crane could have been driven by a spirit stone, but without knowing the price here and having sufficient spiritual power, I didn't want to use the inferior spirit stone that was only 10 yuan in the evening. During a night of heart-to-heart talks with Yi Shesong, Yuan also learned more information about the cultivation world. Although the 10 spiritual stones in her storage bag are beautiful, they are the cheapest inferior spiritual stones with very little spiritual energy content, completely inferior to higher level ones. According to Yi Shesong, their inner disciples receive 10 top-grade spiritual stones at the beginning, which are pure and abundant in spiritual energy. One stone is enough for their current cultivation for 3 days. If they use a low-grade spiritual stone, they may not be able to use it for half a day. Unfortunately, top-grade spirit stones are too expensive. One top-grade spirit stone can be exchanged for 1,000 mid-grade spirit stones, while one mid-grade spirit stone can be exchanged for 1,000 low-grade spirit stones. As for premium spirit stones, one piece can be exchanged for 1,000 premium spirit stones. Alas, unfortunately, it is usually exchanged from high to low, and few people can exchange lower-grade spirit stones for medium and upper-grade ones. After all, precious essence is not much more expensive. Yuan sighed. Although there were few spiritual stones on hand, there were indeed many places to use them. Training, formations, flying treasures, and daily purchases of other materials are all required. It can be said that without spirit stones, it is difficult to move a single step. So she decided to go to the scripture storage room to select some spells after receiving the supplies for the next 6 months. As a beginner, she has a free opportunity to choose spells that are equivalent in number to her own spiritual roots. As for later, you will need to use contribution points or spirit stones to buy. In addition to spells, Yi Shesong also needs to burn a copy of the Hualing Monster Chronicle and Hualing Grass Sutra mentioned. As for the rest, let's take a look and discuss it later. Plan the next action: change the finger code with your right hand in the evening, control the paper crane to slowly descend, and the peak of success has arrived. She landed in an open space in front of the mission hall, and her supplies were not far from here. Yi Shesong had previously instructed her to land here first and not directly use it for material requisition. As for the reason, she only gave an indescribable look and stopped saying it. In the evening, he collected the paper cranes, recognized the direction, and ran into a gravel road surrounded by bamboo forests on the left side of the task hall. After walking for a moment, the bamboo forest disappeared. There was a narrow path on the left side leaning against the cliff, and not far from the right side was also facing the cliff. The space between the two cliffs was empty, and the sound of rushing water could be faintly heard below. Looking at this stone slab road, which is only as wide as my own small foot, it seems to be a well-designed mechanism. Each stone slab is about half a meter away from each other, and sometimes it suddenly retracts into the cliff. Yuan. The color of the slate and cliff is consistent, so be careful not to step on them when walking. She finally knew why she couldn't come by paper crane. Firstly, the paper crane was too big, and secondly, there were bamboo leaves floating between the two cliffs in the bamboo forest behind her. Just now, a male disciple who had entered the outer door at the same time seemed to have arrived for the first time. The paper crane he was riding on was cut open by bamboo leaves. The disciple was swaying and was bound by the rhizomes protruding from the ground under her feet, hanging on the lower rock wall. Seeing the green and white rhizome extending again, it seemed to be rushing towards me, no longer stopping at night, running and jumping all the way down the left stone path towards the depths. About a moment later, slightly panting, Yuan saw a stone pavilion ahead and quickly accelerated his speed, running over. With a sigh of relief, she wiped away the sweat from her forehead, turned around, passed through the stone gate, and entered to claim supplies. The cottage is a space dug out on the cliff, and the entrance is built with a stone pavilion based on the structure of the cliff for the visiting monks to repair. The four walls inside the house are uneven, indicating that the space has not been repaired after being opened up. All furniture in the house is made from local materials, with a uniform black and red stone wall color, and a very consistent style. At this moment, a male cultivator lay diagonally behind the stone counter, humming an unknown tune in his mouth. He stood on the counter with his feet, swaying left and right, and the candlelight beside him began to jump and flicker, bright and dark. The counter is 1 meter tall, and after breaking through to the third floor of the gas refining plant in the evening, the height has also grown to 1.2 meters, and you can just see behind the counter. She sensed and knew that the male cultivator had not yet built a foundation, so she clenched her fists in front of the counter and said, "This senior brother, I will come down to collect supplies from external disciples." The male Shio heard a clear voice with a milky sound, withdrew his feet, sat up, and looked at the smooth and fair forehead outside the counter, with a silver-white bun on top. The hair on the tightly tied bun was curled up and curled up. He felt strange in his heart. Didn't he say she was a little girl? Why? Is she a mother.in.law? His eyes widened slightly as he felt sorry for the spiritual stone he had spent when he heard the mother.in.law start talking again. This senior brother, the disciple, has successfully infused qi into his body. He is here to receive cultivation materials for the next 6 months. After speaking, the novice who appeared out of thin air handed over a blue jade plaque, which was Yuan's identity card. The man listened to the sound of speech and slowly stood up, holding his breath. Fortunately, it's the greedy girl, not the mother.in.law. Unexpectedly, it's strange. Fortunately, there were no jokes. Fortunately, Qin's spirit stone was not in vain, and she was indeed waiting for her here. This male cultivator is Qin Yuqing. He invited his senior brother on duty to go to Xinghai Tower for a meal, so he can wait here for a rabbit. Seeing Yuan, he first raised his eyebrows slightly, and then the smile at the corners of his eyes instantly bloomed. It turns out to be junior sister Yu. Wait a moment, Qin will take it. This jade plaque junior sister can take it back now. It's because Qin just woke up and didn't realize it for a while. After speaking, Qin Yuqing walked into the curtain behind him. Yuan looked at the man standing up with a surprised expression on his face, then greeted him with a smile on his face. The wrinkles at the corners of his eyes were either relaxed or wrinkled with his expression. Moreover, there was a strange light in his eyes, as if looking at a lamb waiting to be slaughtered, estimating that he wanted to buy a good price. Yuan shook her head and shook off the strange thoughts that had emerged, reminding herself in her heart. Anyway, if she takes the supplies, she will leave and there won't be much interaction with this senior brother. In a moment, Qin Yuqing walked out, holding a storage bag with his hands hanging on his chest. Please check it out, junior sister. There are a total of 60 inferior spirit stones in the 6-month supply, including 6 bottles of revitalizing spirit pill, 6 bottles of blood tonifying pill, and 6 bottles of consolidating spirit pill each, all of which are inferior. Junior sister, you can come earlier next time, and if you are lucky, you can receive a medium-grade pill. Yuan took the storage bag handed over by Qin Yuqing, scanned it with divine sense, and confirmed the quantity. After introducing qi into the body, you can directly use spiritual energy to open the unowned storage bag. If you want to recognize the owner, simply imprint it with divine consciousness, and there is no need to drip blood to recognize the owner. May I ask Senior Qin, there are still 6 bottles of Pai Gu Dan missing here. Do you know that 1 bottle of Pai Gu Dan can be exchanged for a free coupon at the Lingshan Hall in January, junior sister? I wonder which one junior sister chooses. When Yuan heard Qin Yuqing's reminder, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Did he know? Could you please Qin senior brother? I need 4 bottles of P1-10 and 2 free vouchers. Upon hearing Yuan's decision, Qin Yuqing directly took out the corresponding quantity of 2 items from his storage bag. He continued to smile and said to Yuan, "Junior sister, are you sure you only need 2 tickets? Please, senior brother." Yuan, put away the P1-10 and free coupons on the counter. Qin senior brother, goodbye. Yuanjing was about to turn around and leave, but the next moment, Qin Yuqing dodged and blocked the door. Qin senior brother, are you? Don't panic, junior sister Qin wants to do business with her. If junior sister wants more free vouchers in the future, she can come directly to Qin. Qin has many coupons in his hands, and if junior sister wants to eat other types of delicious food, Qin also has discounts here. This is Qin's transmission note, looking forward to junior sister's transmission. After speaking, Qin Yuqing leaned over and extended his right arm, saying, "Please." Yuan took the note and punched him, leaving without saying a word. Qin Yuqing continued to lie back on the stone chair, with his feet resting on the counter. In the midst of the candlelight, he hummed a light and cheerful tune. After coming out, I ran all the way to the scripture storage building on the other side of Qinggu Peak in the evening. The first floor is filled with various travelogues, classics, etc., while the second floor is filled with content related to spells. After selecting them, come here to burn them, and you will receive a 5-piece lower grade spirit stone. After finishing speaking, the steward at the entrance of the scripture building hugged her in the evening and ran straight to the second floor. After choosing for a long time, she took on the water reunion technique, rejuvenation technique, and fireball technique. In addition, considering that she couldn't avoid running more in the future, she also took on the light body technique. Go down to the first floor, first take the Wa Spirit Monster Chronicle and Wa Spirit Grass Classic, then pick and choose, and then take a Wa Spirit Realm Chronicle, which includes the entire Wa Spirit Realm geography, production, as well as introductions to rare beasts, spiritual flowers, spiritual plants, and spiritual fruits. Holding a pile of jade slips, he walked to the counter in the evening and tiptoed onto the counter. Could you please record these? Wait a moment. A total of 35 inferior spirit stones. Do these 4 books need to use spirit stones or contribute points to offset them? Could you please use the contribution points for the lightness technique, and use spirit stones for the rest? There are a total of 35 lower grade spirit stones in the 3 books, with 2 contribution points for the light body technique. There are a total of 70 spirit stones with 2 contribution points. Hand over the identity jade plaque in the evening and put the engraved jade slip into the storage bag. Thank you very much, senior uncle. After taking the identity card, he expressed his gratitude in the evening and left directly. As soon as she entered the scripture collection building, she had spent all her wealth. She couldn't help but feel a sigh in her heart that she needed to hurry up and practice magic to earn spiritual stones. After coming out, she saw that it was already late and planned to return to Yuen Peak before it was completely dark. So she took out a paper crane and enlarged it, jumped up and flew away. After daytime use, the paper crane is noticeably much smoother this time. When flying over the foot of Yuen Peak, looking at the already lit lights below, I turned around in the evening and controlled the paper crane to slowly descend. In no time, Yuan, who had landed on a small stone path at the foot of the mountain, put away his paper crane and began to follow the stone path towards the nearby tower with bright lights. Unknown green grass is planted along the slate road, with feathered leaves and small serrations at the edges. Each tree is 1 meter tall, and some even have colorful spherical flowers hanging from their heads. At this moment, the evening breeze blows, green waves rise and fall, flowers rise and fall, and a unique fragrance drifts onto the path amidst their ups and downs. Take a deep breath in the evening, it smells so good. The male cultivator who walked towards Yuan covered his mouth and nose and ran quickly, muttering, "Run quickly, it's too smelly." The female cultivator beside him sealed her spiritual consciousness, covered her mouth and nose, still looking uncomfortable, constantly accelerating her speed. Yuan looked at the two people passing by in confusion and continued to smell the fragrance as they walked forward. In no time, Zhuang Zishi, who had entered the inner door, covered his mouth and nose and appeared at the bend ahead. He was the boy who wanted to join the crowd in the square to chat but gave up. Just as Yuan was about to say hello, he accelerated his pace and ran past her. As he passed by, he heard a muffled murmur. Strange person. Feeling his hair at night, it was unclear whether Zhuangzi Shi was referring to his own hair. Ignoring him, he continued to walk slowly in the evening, enjoying and smelling the fragrance all the way, and finally stopped in front of the target gate. Glancing at the golden-edged white-faced plaque under the eaves of the second floor, there were 3 sparkling golden characters on the white surface. Lingshan Hall. She seemed to smell the fragrance of wheat from the plaque. Before she had a chance to explore, a stronger aroma emanated from inside the door. She turned her gaze towards the middle of the building and eagerly strode in. The first floor of Lingshan Hall was very empty, with no one in sight. She found a seat by the window and was wondering how to order when she saw a beige light wall standing in the center of the table, with golden seal script writing. Today's menu. Coriander Banquet. The light wall appeared for less than a breath, and the entire desktop began to shimmer with a faint beige light. Yuan was puzzled and tried to put a free coupon on top. The desktop immediately stopped flashing, and the free coupon also dimmed compared to before. As she put away the free coupon, the table flickered again, and as the light wall disappeared, the table was filled with dishes. After counting, there are a total of 5 dishes, 1 soup, and a bowl of white rice. In each dish, there is a green grass that was just seen on both sides of the path in the evening. It seems that after cooking, the aroma of this grass has become increasingly strong. Then, the desktop flickered again, and a row of golden flyhead characters appeared next to each dish: cold mixed coriander, coriander mixed with yellow horn beef brisket, shredded coriander turkey chicken leg, coriander squash, coriander iced egg cake, coriander soup. For cold dishes, 1 pancake, 1 bowl of hot soup. The fragrance is overflowing, hooking up in the evening with a big movement of the fingers, and the greedy insects in the stomach are clamoring restlessly. Gu, having learned from eating rice a month ago, I swallowed my saliva in the evening and picked up a grain of Lingbai rice with chopsticks to taste. At the entrance of the rice grains, there is a faint aroma of rice, and when the white teeth chew, the aroma of rice fills the entire mouth. Delicious. Although it lacks the special aroma of that day's spirit rice, the rice grains are soft with a slight chewiness, making people unable to stop. A grain enters the abdomen, lips, teeth, and tongue, all calling out for loneliness and emptiness. I took 2 bites of rice and picked up a chopstick of coriander mixed with yellow horn beef brisket in the evening. After being stewed for a long time, the beef brisket becomes soft, rotten, and flavorful. Each piece is evenly distributed with a hint of beef tendon, adding a bit of chewiness to it. The outer layer is wrapped in a sauce mixed with coriander, vinegar, and spicy flavors, neutralizing the greasy taste of constantly eating meat and adding different refreshing flavors. After multiple layers of flavor stacking at the same time, the soil spiritual energy contained in it, along with the wood spiritual energy of coriander, slid into the abdomen. She only felt that her empty belly had just received some comfort and continued to lift her chopsticks. Click. After being cut into sections, the coriander mixed in is crispy and also carries the fragrance of meat and sauce. Coupled with its unique flavor, it was later felt that coriander mixed with the hard yellow horn beef would also be delicious. Then, her chopsticks reached into the chicken leg meat, cucumber, egg cake. Each dish is stimulated by coriander to give it a different flavor. The fire spirit chicken leg is soft, tender, and thick, with a hint of fire spirit accompanied by coriander, which is spicy and refreshing. The equally crispy green melon, with its flesh rich in wood spiritual energy wrapped in juice and seasoning, gently enters the stomach with coriander, relieving the spiciness brought by the fire's spiritual energy. Just now it is said that the eggs of the frozen golden pheasant are hard like ice cream, but the egg cakes in the mouth is soft like nothing. After hot cooking, the ice aura in the eggs turns into water aura, and the coriander becomes delicate and soft, while the flavor becomes more colorful under the fusion of the two, the salty and fresh flavors of egg fragrance, coriander fragrance, and salt in the mouth bloom simultaneously, with the water and wood spiritual energy flowing into the stomach through the throat. A warm feeling gradually rising. The tip of the chopsticks kept circulating between the 5 dishes, occasionally picking up a piece of rice and soaking it in rain and dew. Only the coriander soup still lingers in the cold palace, braving the heat alone and enjoying itself. In the end, the plate is light and the bowl is light. Yuan leaned back on the chair, rubbing his very satisfied stomach, and his lips, teeth, and tongue rested at this moment, no longer unable to roar. She took a break and looked at the bowl of coriander soup on the table. Although she was neglected, she still felt hot. After a moment of relaxation, I sat straight and reached out to take the coriander soup, staring at the surface. The coriander soup has a clear soup head, with a lingering heat. The coriander stems and leaves in the white jade bowl wander in the air as if they have nothing to rely on. As if dazzled by the soup, Yuan gently pressed the bowl against his lips in the evening, and in order to prevent scalding, he sucked it away in a low voice. Gradually, the sound of sucking disappeared, and the sound of swallowing loudly rang out in the empty spiritual dining hall. Gudong gudong ha. Finally, having had enough to eat and drink, Yuan put down his exhausted white jade bowl and let out a long sigh of relief. Feeling the 5-colored spiritual energy filling her abdomen, she realized in the evening that she had to hurry back to refine. I will definitely visit this spiritual chef in the future. This meal is so delicious. While making up his mind, he got up in the evening and walked out. As soon as he left the door, he took out a paper crane and flew back to the Egyo courtyard inside the Lingshan hall. After leaving late, the table flickered again, and the empty dishes and still dishes on the table disappeared. You're really a greedy girl. It's been a long time since I've met someone who loves coriander so much. It's great, follow me. I just don't know if I love cooking. Let's continue to recruit for the spirit kitchen tomorrow. It's fate but not fate, let's see if she will come. This cold canteen should be more popular now. Coriander is coriander. I don't know if my friends like to eat coriander. The author loves it very much, hahaha. Seeking monthly and recommended tickets, please do not hesitate to buy your own tickets. Click to get up. Join the bookshelf for easy access to updates at any time. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Golden and Jade Soup. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Golden and Jade Soup. 1 Sunday, 2 Sundays, 3 Sundays. The stars disappear, and the golden wheels emerge again. Exhale a mouthful of turbid air in the evening and open your eyes. She is still at the peak of her 3rd level of chi cultivation. After a night of refining, it seems that her elixir field is about to be burst, but there is no chance for her to break through. Yuan impatiently grabbed his head, and the bun on his head was loose and crooked. With a sigh, she applied a cleansing technique to her body. I have no idea, so let's learn first. As the ancient Chinese saying goes, there must be a way when the car reaches the mountain. She needs to calm down and not be too impatient. Comforting myself in my heart, I started looking at the jade slips burned yesterday in the evening. Lightness technique is to evenly distribute spiritual power within the body, making the body lighter and accelerating movement speed. The Ren Shui technique, when cultivated to a small extent, can create a waterfall out of thin air, which can slow down enemy attacks. If cultivated to a large extent, the waterfall will devour all incoming attacks like surging waves of river water. Is it an enlarged version of the waterfall roast in the evening? Rejuvenation technique can use with spiritual energy to restore one's own or others' injuries. Fireball technique, using one's own fire spiritual power to condense a ball of fire. To sum up, it is a complete set of escape, defense, treatment, and attack. Yuan pondered for a moment and decided to spend 2 hours each day practicing the lightness technique and fireball technique. Firstly, it would be easier to escape, and secondly, fire would be more powerful than water. As for the Renshui technique and the rejuvenation technique, they each occupy 1 hour per day. The remaining time, 4 hours, is spent on reading the Jade slips, and the knowledge of the cultivation world needs to be replenished as soon as possible. The diet book is read for 1 hour each day, and then it can be increased appropriately according to the progress of the Jade slips. Finally, only give yourself 1 hour of sleep. After all, as meditation can restore energy, sleep time can be appropriately reduced. Make a plan for the next month, get up late and come to the hospital to start practicing lightness techniques on that open space. Control the Dantian spiritual power to swim along the meridians towards the limbs and spine. In the evening, feel the right foot light, and in the evening, feel like there is a breath of immortal energy in the chest, allowing oneself to fly at any time. After constantly trying for an hour, she finally distributed her spiritual power evenly across her limbs and body trunk. At this moment, she felt light all over her body and walked forward. Within a few steps, she arrived at the opposite fence, as if a gust of wind was pushing her from behind. I continued practicing for half an hour, and the time I persisted in the evening became longer and the distance I took a step further. Finally, she was able to walk from one fence to the other in an instant. Just arrived, the last trace of spiritual power in his body was exhausted, and Yuan's head also felt a slight pain. Take a soul-returning pill and a spirit-strengthening pill, and meditate on the spot in the evening to recover. 3 weeks later, the spiritual energy of the Dantian was once again filled, and the sea of consciousness was restored. Yuan still sat in the same spot, closing his eyes and thinking. Although light body technique is fast, it consumes a significant amount of spiritual energy. In case of emergency, running like this is definitely not a long-term solution. What if only spiritual power is infused into the legs? Do as you think and get up late to try. Quickly, she discovered that although the speed decreased slightly after being infused into her legs, the consumption of spiritual energy was greatly reduced, making this method feasible. After continuing to practice like this for half an hour, she stopped and decided to start practicing lightness for 1 hour and then flying legs for another hour in the future, so that she could make choices according to different situations. Then, she began practicing fireball, renshui, and rejuvenation techniques. After 4 hours of continuous practice, she was able to easily release a palm-sized fiery fireball within 2 breaths, or summon a 2-inch thick water curtain within 1 breath. At the same time, she successfully used 5 breaths to make a small grass in the hospital that only reached her ankle grow to the same height as her under the nourishment of the rejuvenation technique. After continuing to meditate and recover, it is time to understand the knowledge of the cultivation world. At this moment, I also felt hungry. In the evening, I swallowed a pai gu dan and began to sit at the stone table in the courtyard, looking at the jade slips. She first read the records of the Hualing realm. I used to be in this realm called Hualing realm, and because the entire continent here resembles a phoenix spreading its wings, it is also called Fenghua continent. Fenghua continent is divided into 5 regions, namely the eastern Mugu domain, the southern Wanyao domain, the western chaotic sea area, the northern cold sky domain, and the central Sanxing domain where she is located. Each domain has different forces controlling and allocating local cultivation resources. Of course, the customs, specialties, spirit beasts, and herbs of each domain have their own characteristics, and when watching them in the evening, I can't help but swallow my saliva afterwards. I will travel to every part of the mainland to enrich my diet. She secretly made a decision in her heart and continued to watch, noticing 3 of the towers. The Baibao Pavilion, Xinghai Tower, and Xian Pavilion are not affiliated with any power on the mainland, and no one knows who founded and continued to grow. As the name suggests, Baibao Pavilion is a place for trading various rare treasures. In addition to buying and selling various information, the Xian Pavilion can also transmit messages across domains, making it convenient for friends or treasure hunting information to be quickly conveyed. As for this Star Sea Tower, it is said that they boast that mainland cuisine is all in this building, and there are more dishes inside than the realm in the void, so they call themselves Star Sea Tower. Seeing that the closest place to me in the introduction was Tianxiang City, Yuan thought of what Qin's senior brother, who was responsible for receiving supplies yesterday, had mentioned and wondered if he had a coupon for this. The horizon was gradually invaded by splashing ink, and it remained motionless until the starry river filled the sky in the evening. Day after day, soon, early autumn had arrived. Last night it rained heavily, and I was studying and practicing in my room that night. In the morning, I woke up and walked to the courtyard, taking a breath of air with the fragrance of osmanthus and begonia. In the evening, I set off to fly to the task hall of Chenggu Peak. On the way, she suddenly had a sudden idea to add the lightness technique to the paper crane. The paper crane suddenly paused and then flew away like arrows shot from a full bow on the open space in front of the task hall. I sorted out my hair that had been blown by the wind in the evening and walked directly into the gate of the task hall. Team up on the outskirts of Tianqing mountain range. We need a male cultivator in the middle stage of qi refining, and female cultivators should not disturb us. Team up for the Tianxiang City auction. No male cultivators, any female cultivator who has not built a foundation is acceptable. Entering the gate and passing through the formation, lively shouts echoed through the evening ears. She first stood at the door to observe for a moment, then walked directly to the counter on the right side of the room. "Excuse me, senior sister. Do you have any suitable tasks for middle school students in gas refining?" The female cultivator on the 6th floor of the gas refining behind the counter seemed very busy, without looking up at the black gold pillar near the counter. "If the edge is slightly lower, go take a look. If the black text has turned gray, it indicates that someone has claimed it. If you see something you like, directly tap into the spiritual power, and the disciple's identity card will be automatically recorded." "Thank you very much, senior sister." Yuan looked at the busy nun who continued to bow her head, then turned around and went to the pillar where 10 people could gather. Team up on the outskirts of the Tianqing mountains to hunt down the air leopard, with a total of 100 contribution points, distributed according to work. Catching 10 silver moonfish in Jade Lake, with 1 fish contributing 2 points. Xian Beast Peak cleans up iron-eating animal feces, contributing points on January 10th for a total of 2 months. Looking all the way, it was gray, and my gaze continued to look back until the last one was finally written in black. Strange. Did you find out that the last task was released a month ago, and no one has claimed it for so long? She looked at the task content and said, recruiting spiritual chefs. Ling Shan Tang, contributing 100 points per month. Yu's eyes lit up in the evening, and this task was just right for her. She quickly lit up her spirit, and then the disciple identity card on her waist flashed, causing the tasks on the pillar to turn gray. Although it was unclear why no one had taken on this high-paying task, considering the coriander banquet I had eaten that day and the fact that I had no other choice at present, I didn't inquire much in the evening and took it directly. After completing the task, rushed directly to the Lingshan Hall at the foot of Yuanyifeng Mountain in the evening. In the sky, she looked at the green waves below and controlled the paper crane to stop directly at the entrance of the Lingshan Hall. There are still many opportunities to explore in the future, so it's better to focus on tasks on the first day. Thinking this way, Yuan walked in. At this moment, the first floor of the lobby is still empty and unusually quiet. Yuan didn't know where to go or who to look for, so he stood at the entrance, clenched his fists and said, Yuanifeng's outer disciple Yuan has received a spiritual kitchen task. I don't know if there is a senior uncle here, let me know the details of the task. The voice echoed in the lobby, and no sound appeared to reply to her. At this moment, the tabletop of the square table that had dinner later flashed, and a small line of words appeared on the central light wall. Taste. Then there were 100 more white jade bowls on the table, each with a few golden seal scripts written on the edges, which were the names of the objects in the bowls. Yuan guessed that this should be the test of the spiritual kitchen, took a deep breath, walked to the table, and tasted one bowl after another. Nearly 80% of these 100 bowls are used for seasoning, some are spicy, some are pungent, some are bitter, and some are numb. After tasting a bowl, I wash one side of my tongue with spiritual power in the evening to avoid affecting my judgment. An hour later, she finished the last serving and placed the white jade bowl on the table. The table flickered again, and 100 bowls disappeared in an instant, leaving only one golden-footed jade bowl with a golden edge standing on the side of the table near the evening. Inside the bowl was a creamy food with a golden jade luster. A jade slip was placed on the left side of the bowl, and a jade spoon was placed on the right side of the chopsticks. At this point, the characters on the central light wall have also changed, becoming tasting golden jade soup. Yuan first rinsed his mouth inside and out again with spiritual power, then picked up the jade bowl and looked at it carefully. The spiritual energy and fragrance of the golden and jade soup in the bowl seemed to be blocked, without any leakage. Gently shaking the small bowl, the golden and jade soup swayed like waves of water, but it didn't splash out like flowing water, much like the jelly mentioned in the scripture, but it didn't have the same transparency as jelly. After observing, pick up the spoon from the table in the evening and gently scoop the next spoon. The golden jade soup in the spoon still had a creamy texture, and as it shook back and forth, she thought of the taste of egg pudding described by Master Shun in the Book of Songs. Duong duong at the entrance, the lips and tongue dance with it, and the rich flavors burst out one after another. Meat aroma, egg aroma. And the freshness of fish, with layers of flavors blooming, she felt that her mouth was not enough. Before I could chew it, this spoonful of golden jade soup slipped directly into my stomach. At first, the stomach was like drinking ice and spiritual water, penetrating the heart and spleen then, like swallowing the fire crown on top of the fire spirit chicken's head, the abdomen burned furthermore. It seems that after eating the yellow horned ox tongue, the fire in the stomach is instantly covered by the soft soil of the center, and both the body and mind are warm one feeling after another, like waves constantly pounding the mouth and abdomen, even gradually spreading throughout the body. One spoonful, another spoonful, and during pauses, she would also pick up the jade slips beside her to record. Ding Jing Yuan, who was obsessed with eating, only realized that the golden and jade soup had been eaten by himself, so he made a sound of jade and stone hitting each other. It was the jade spoon that hit the bottom of the jade bowl. Put down the dishes, sit at the table in the evening, continue to close your eyes and feel, occasionally placing the jade slips in your forehead to record. Soon, all the spiritual light beads in the Lingshan hall lit up and it was nightfall. The frequency of recording in the evening gradually decreased, and gradually, it took a long time for her to pick up the jade slip. The Lingguang pearl went out, and in the evening, he pressed the jade slip between his forehead for the last time, made a record, and checked it again. Exhaling a mouthful of turbid air, opening her eyes, she placed the final confirmed jade slip on the table. The spiritual light flashed by, leaving nothing on the desktop. In less than a few breaths, the central light wall reappeared, with the words. In a 3-day period, there were 1,000 swift rabbits. Thinking that Yuan, who was looking at her eyes, couldn't believe it, she rubbed her eyes and looked over. In a 3-day period, there are 3,000 rabbits with a strong wind. In the evening. Dish asterisk, what kind of spiritual kitchen test is this? Do spiritual chefs still need to hunt so many monsters at once? The difficulty is comparable to reaching the sky. The breeze rabbit is a demon beast located in a valley plain on the outskirts of the Tianqing mountain range. Although they only have the early stage of qi refining and are rarely seen in the middle and late stages of qi refining, as its name suggests, their speed is as fast as the breeze. Generally, it is difficult for a foundation building cultivator to capture 100 within 3 days, let alone 3,000 with a cultivation level of 3 layers of qi refining. Yuan was considering whether to form a team when 2 characters appeared on the light wall. She couldn't help but feel even more desperate when she saw them. Alone in the evening. Alas, I moaned alone for a moment, and in the evening, I thought of the double compensation for not being able to complete the task all right. Isn't it the storm rabbit? Just go. Before we go over, we need to inquire about relevant information, otherwise we will run into the south wall again and cannot even turn back. That Chin's senior brother should have in the evening. He planned to walk to the door and emit a note, then took out the paper crane and flew away directly. This little guy actually answered correctly. Not bad, follow me. Ha ha ha, show off to senior brother. The Lingshan Hall has once again regained its former tranquility. What's good to eat when hunting so many rabbits? The author is seriously contemplating seeking monthly and recommended tickets. Please do not hesitate to buy your own tickets. Click to get up. Join the bookshelf for easy access to updates at any time. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Spicy Rabbit Head. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Spicy Rabbit Head. 1, 2, 4 or 5. Yuan, who had been working hard for half a day on Tuerpo, was already sweating profusely. She took out her spirit dew, gulped it down several times, then used the formation flag to set up a hidden formation, and crossed her legs to recover. Tuerpo was introduced by Qin Yuqing. It is said that this is the stronghold of various rabbit monsters, and because of its speed advantage, the fast-wind rabbit is home to nearly 80% of them. The spirit dew and formation flag on her body were also recommended by Qin Yuqing, although he was right. To go hunting demons, one needs to prepare all the necessary supplies in order to achieve twice the result with half the effort. But looking at his face, I already knew and prepared it for you, as well as his appearance when he finally issued an IOU and said the interest. I felt his teeth itch and his fists feel lonely in the evening. It's really true that there is no business without fraud. Sigh. She didn't expect to start owing the daily interest of 100 spirit beads before she even earned the spirit stones. This was still discounted by Qin Yuqing. If it weren't for the sudden situation, how could it be so? I can't do this in the future. After all, I underestimated the so-called spiritual kitchen too much. After a moment of sighing, Yi meditated in the evening and focused on how to quickly gather a large number of storm rabbits and kill them in one fell swoop. Now, with the help of lightness techniques, I can barely use fireball techniques to kill them, but the efficiency is also too low. Gathering seeds. Yuan kept muttering in her heart and suddenly thought of the recipe for dough in the recipe. Wheat flour will aggregate into clumps when it comes into contact with water, and its toughness will also increase with continuous kneading and beating. Following this train of thought, I started studying the usage of Renshui technique in the evening. The water transformed by the Renshui technique is yang. If it is combined with the yin water of the Guishui technique, yin and yang will merge, and its properties will be like water and wheat. Perhaps it is feasible, but now she doesn't have time to learn the technique of Guishui, which can be kept for future verification. Alternative and negative spiritual objects. I heard that the back of Tuer Slope is a shady mountain area, where there is a kind of silver grass. It is not only one of the rations for this group of rabbits, but also one of the basic materials for refining stretchable and fusion-type magical weapons. This grass, maybe you can give it a try. Confirm the method of coping and quickly restore spiritual power in the evening. Half an hour later, she put away the formation flag and quickly ran up the mountain slope with her flying legs, heading to the other side of the insect's shade back. After arriving, she quickly pulled out two at the entrance and went back to Tuer Slope for an experiment. After confirming the feasibility of this method, she charged up and ran straight in without stopping his flying legs. He quickly pulled out the Hyenko and rushed to the next place without stopping for a moment. At night, from the outside to the inside, layer by layer, I never let go of any tall adult silver grass that I see. The leaves and stems of Hyenko are slender and straight, and the narrow linear tips of the leaves curl inward into a thin needle shape. The parts above the ground are all silver white, resembling clusters of slender spearheads piercing the ground from a distance. Just for some reason, the venomous insects on the back of the insect like to build nests near its roots, so we must run away before those poisonous insects react in the evening, otherwise it will be another fierce battle. 2 quarters later, Yuan had already collected nearly a storage bag of Hyenko. During her run, she would occasionally sweep behind her, only to find that the top of the bulging mound was about to break open. The figure charging forward paused and immediately used the lightness technique to sprint back to the top of the mountain slope. Not long after, the cultivators who were coming up from the other side of the mountain slope, preparing to collect some silver grass to blend into the magical tools, saw a desolate yellow scene in front of them and froze in place. The silver grass near the back of the insect's shadow has been harvested to the fullest, with only a faint silver glow shining in the darker depths at this moment. One by one, the earth mounds that had already swollen to the extreme exploded in an instant, and countless flying centipedes, venomous snakes, and winged mice shot towards them. Among them, there are many demonic insects with later cultivation of chi refining. After returning to the tour slope, in the evening, taking advantage of the strong afternoon wind, the rabbit was sunbathing outside and used the ren shui technique to condense a slender water refining, wrapping the roots in silver grass. Then the spiritual power shook, and the silver grass directly turned into powder, blending with the water refining. The light blue water refining also turned into a blue-silver color. In the evening, he consecutively practiced hundreds of such water refining techniques, during which he took the revitalization pill and the consolidating spirit pill to supplement his spiritual power and consciousness. Finally, with the transformation of her fingertip spiritual formula, hundreds of water were refined into a blue-silver dense net. In the evening, she placed the net between two trees and concealed the formation with flags around her. Then, she went to the slope to catch the rabbits. Although the speed of the wind rabbit is fast, its attack is not strong, and its courage is also very small. They were startled at night, those who were close jumped directly into the cave, and those who were far away panicked and ran aimlessly. At night, he used the lightness technique to drive left and right, controlling the direction of their escape. In no time, bursts of rabbit whining echoed in piles. Ing! Ing. Their cries can affect the spiritual consciousness of cultivators, but their power is not strong. In the evening, they swallow the fixed spirit pill pressed under their tongue and continue to control the fusion of the water refining net. Gradually, the mesh became smaller and eventually transformed into a closed hollow sphere, locking in the sounds inside. Then she once again performed the ren shui technique, and the 2-inch wide waterfall continuously washed away the wind rabbit inside the sphere. After they all fainted, they picked up the water refining with their left hand and released the fireball technique with their right hand. At night, in an instant, a fireball only 80% the size of her palm flew out of her fingertips and entered the hollow sphere. At night, while controlling the flames to burn, he rotated the hollow ball at a constant speed. Slowly, the surface of the ball became dry, and the color gradually turned to beige. The rabbits trapped inside the ball died one by one, their fur was burned clean, and each rabbit's flesh ball and tail turned a little burnt black unexpectedly. In order to ensure that the rabbit meat was not burned and killed, Yuan directly controlled the flames to enter from the rabbit tail, burning their internal organs completely. After the last rabbit was killed, the ball had turned into a large yellow hard shell with scattered silver stars on the surface. As one approached, he lightly tapped the surface of the ball with his fingertips, and could also hear the crisp sound of sand and sand. Then, she punched directly, and the hit part made a clicking sound. As the sound continued to change, it became increasingly dense, and the fine cracks quickly spread from the bottom of the fist to the entire surface. Cracks spread to the extreme. Click 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 click. The ball shattered. In the evening, use your left hand to collect fragments with spiritual power, and your right hand to put the storm rabbit into the prepared storage bag. 100 pieces. After collecting and counting them, she looked at the hundreds of Quangfeng rabbits in the storage bag, feeling happy. She picked up a beige fragment from her left spiritual power bowl and handed it to her mouth. Click. Under the crispy taste, there is a faint aroma of wheat and grass, and in the midst of chewing, the three-color spiritual power overflows into the stomach. Yuan didn't expect that the hyene grass contained hidden golden spiritual power, no wonder it could become a material for refining weapons. I continued to take a few bites and later remembered the description of the taste of potato chips in the recipe, so I called it hollow silver potato balls. It is already late at night, the jade plate is in the sky, the frosty night is quiet, the grass slope is cool, and the rabbit holes are dense and secluded. Yuan found a flat ground to set up the formation flag, then sat cross-legged on the ground and continued to eat. Kaza 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 kaza. When the warmth rose in her belly, she put away her spiritual bowl and began to meditate and recover. On the second day, he continued to use the same method to drive, capture, and kill, and finally obtained 5 hollow silver sweet potato balls and 1,400 bear rabbit corpses. In the process of continuous driving and killing, Yuan became more adept at using spells, and the fireball was compressed by 10%, and the waterfall became 3 inches thick. Now with the support of flying legs alone, you can easily catch up with the wind rabbit. In the evening on the third day at noon, she successfully broke through the 3 barriers and entered the 4th layer of gas refining. Over the course of several days of accumulation, she entered the middle of the 4th tier in one fell swoop. At this point, there are only 600 left from the target. Yuan first calmed down and stabilized his cultivation, then worked hard to refine a dense net made of thousands of water and drove 600 swift rabbits into it at once. After improving her cultivation, she was able to allocate more mental energy to control the ball, so she curiously added a hint of wood spiritual energy to the ball during the burning. In the end, a ball filled with silver star dots and protrusions appeared. She tasted it and it was still crispy as usual, but at this point, the taste and appearance were more like the pot in the recipe. So she gave the round ball, which had been infused with wood spirit, a new name and called it silver ball guaba. As usual, she finished eating and then recovered, and after recovering, she returned to her small courtyard in the darkness. She hasn't slept for 3 days, so she needs to get a good night's sleep first. The next morning, Yuan, who had slept well, stretched out comfortably and then sat down on the paper crane to go to the spiritual canteen at the foot of the mountain. It was still an empty spiritual dining hall. After entering, she walked directly to the table that had been going all the way and placed the storage bag containing 3005 fast wind rabbits on the table. The surface of the square table flickered again, and the storage bag disappeared. I sat down in the evening and waited for the task to follow. About an hour later, a light beige light flashed by, and a large plate of red things appeared on the table. The beige light wall in the center also appeared, with the words, "Spicy rabbit head." Yuan raised her eyebrows and looked at the rabbit heads soaked in red oil sauce, each surface still wrapped in various chopped spicy and sesame seasoning mixtures. She guessed that the next test might be finishing the rabbit head in the bowl. With this in mind, she rudely rolled up her sleeves and reached out to take out a rabbit head. She watched for a moment, holding the rabbit's head teeth in both hands and breaking them up and down, separating the upper and lower jaws. Then she took the lead in eating the lower jaw held in her right hand and swallowed the rabbit tongue inside in one gulp. When the two tongues touch each other, the first sensation is the slightly stiff texture of the rabbit tongue, as well as the pepper, sesame, and spicy flavors mixed with seasonings on the surface. At this moment, she hasn't realized how spicy it is yet. As she began to chew, she felt a completely opposite taste, with the rabbit tongue becoming soft but not losing its strength between its white teeth. At the same time, the wind power overflowing between the rabbit tongue meat further enhances the flavor of the spices. Spiciness and numbness instantly increase by 2 levels. Hiss hiss hiss. At night, I occasionally took a breath, but I didn't interrupt the taste of the minced meat in my mouth. As the minced meat continued to slide into her abdomen, she felt the wind gradually shifting and moving towards her abdomen. At this moment, the mouth, esophagus, and abdomen are all a fiery red color. After a whirlwind wreaks havoc, however, I enjoyed eating even more in the evening. Raising her right hand to her lips, she nibbled on the flesh on her cheeks. Well, although the shredded meat here is slightly dry, it has more chewing power. His ha. After finishing the jaw, switched to the upper jaw with his right hand, he put down his clean jawline and turned to forcefully pry it off the back of his head. It was even more tender and smooth than the golden and jade soup from a few days ago, and his rabbit brain flour appeared. The rabbit brain flour entering the lips is a perfect combination of the taste of golden and jade soup and the pungent taste of rabbit meat, making the wind and spiritual energy in the mouth stronger and stronger. After finishing the rabbit brain flour, I flipped my left hand and exposed the upper jaw below. I heard that the people of the land of abundance in China called it heaven. The recipe in the Sea of Late Knowledge has already turned to the section on rabbit meat, and the one marked with a golden 5-pointed star has an introduction to this dish. She was amazed by the ingenuity and craftsmanship of the head chef in the Lingshan Hall, while biting down her upper jaw and dancing with her white teeth. Cha-cha, the unique crispy texture and slightly bland taste have eased the continuous spiciness and numbness that just came. The wind and spiritual energy here are like a gentle breeze brushing over the lake, bringing peaceful yet rhythmic ripples, brushing over the mouth and esophagus, soothing the whirlwind inside the abdomen. Finally, with a hissing sound, he ate the lean meat around the rabbit's eye socket in one breath in the evening, and then ate the rabbit's eye inside. Just finished one, without stopping, she continued to reach out and pick up the second one. The battle has just begun. One, another. After finishing a full 100 rabbit heads in the bowl, he couldn't help but perform a cleaning technique in the evening. He immediately took out a big belly gourd and filled it with spiritual dew. Too spicy, too numb, too painful, too delicious. A big belly gourd can hold 100 pounds of spirit dew. She had already consumed nearly 30 pounds of demon hunting in the past 3 days. At this time, in order to relieve the spicy pain in her mouth and abdomen, she had already consumed almost 20 pounds in one breath in the evening. Later on, she had no choice but to sit cross-legged in the chair, refining the wind and spiritual energy in her abdomen while nourishing her abdomen, esophagus, and mouth with the wood spiritual energy. 2 hours later, open your eyes in the evening and take a light breath. She has transformed the wind spiritual energy in her body into wood spiritual energy, and after operating for weeks, she entered the dantian with the nourishment of wood spirit chi. The abdomen and mouth also recover. I never thought that the rejuvenation technique could still be used like this at this point, or feeling the recovery of Yuan. A golden seal script appeared on the central light wall. 5 days, 500 broken air leopards, and 100 each with gold, wood, water, fire, and earth attributes. This sword can be used. With a flash on the desktop, a ground-level magical tool with a gold handle and black-silver blade appeared in the food bowl where the rabbit's head was originally held. This magical tool has a handle that is 3 inches long, a blade that is about 7 inches long and 3.5 inches wide, and a silver-white cold light shining on the blade. Yuan looked at the magical tool on the table, speechless for a long time. Qi refining cultivators use magical tools, which are classified from high to low into heavenly, earthly, xian, and yellow levels. Although she knows that this earth-level magical tool must be valuable, is this asking her to use a kitchen knife to slay the monster? Yuan. Since coming to this world, this sect, and this spiritual food hall, my understanding seems to be constantly refreshing. Sigh helpless and resigned, Yuan picked up the kitchen knife and turned around to leave. We still need to go find Qin Yuqing to buy some information first. As for the Lingsher, let's temporarily use hollow silver sweet potato balls to offset the debt. After a while, voices of emotion echoed from the empty Lingshan hall. This girl can really eat. Hiss. Divide 500 more among senior brothers, and the rest. Hiss. All belong to me. You can make some more spicy rabbit cubes with chili peppers. Hiss. Ha. Hiss. This girl, the more she looks, the more she follows me. She should be my disciple. Hiss. It's so difficult to break through the air leopard this time, it's just that it won't be successful. Finally, let her make a apprenticeship banquet. Hiss. The red jade pepper improved by Yuan Fu this time is really spicy. Haha. Do friends like to eat rabbit heads? The author is currently hesitant to eat, seeking monthly and recommended tickets. Please do not hesitate to buy your own tickets. Click to get up. Join the bookshelf for easy access to updates at any time. End of this chapter.